Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to build a really useful tool for Reddit user. It's a Chrome extension powered by AI which will allow you to prompt with subreddit post as well as any individual post and its comment. Sounds amazing, right? Yeah, it is. So the story started when I encounter a problem. So my time schedule is very tight, but I'm also interested in engaging with various communities on Reddit and other social media platforms. However, I don't have the time to actually shift through all the posts and find the one that actually genuinely interests me. So if you have used Reddit or X or any social media platform for specific interest or engagement, then you have noticed that there are tons of posts are published daily basis with each communities. And if you are interested in a specific or micro area, it's really difficult to find relevant posts to engage with. And I also faced a similar issue when I was using Reddit and specifically all the subreddit I am interested in. Let's say in the JavaScript. So this is a subreddit for JavaScript communities. And if I go and scroll through, then you can see there are tons of posts. And there are tons of posts that I'm not interested in. So if I am looking for a particular or a specific area of post, then how I will able to actually find them? I have to scroll, then I have to read those title or the description to identify the context of that post to understand that's what's going on that post, and which is really time consuming, and that's not productive for programmer or developer who have a full-time job, who do a lot of stuff. So then I think, okay, how we can solve this? And in 2025 we have AI, so why not just use it to actually solve this problem? So if I just scroll more, then you can see that I am just fetching all the data for almost 2 weeks, and you can see that it's 15 days ago, or if I just go below more, then it will come like almost 1 month ago post, and which is not easier for anybody to read one by one post and find out the interested post that anybody looking for. So this Chrome extension will help to prompt with those posts that you are looking for. So if I just right click on the subreddit page, and I can see a menu which is called Reddit Assistant. Yeah, I didn't give any name yet. And I have two menus. One is post inside, another is comment inside. So if I just click on the post inside, then you can see that I have total 128 posts that I have fetched or scroll through, and all the posts I can see in the list. And you can see there are a search input and a search button. Of course, it's not the search that we have by default in the Reddit, which work with keyword, but this search actually work with prompt. Let's say when we prompt on any LLM like Gemini, GPT, we talk with it. So the same scenario will happen here. We can talk with all the subreddit posts. For example, in 128 posts, I want to look into the post that related to someone who is actually seeking help in JavaScript, or maybe I want to find the post that related to JavaScript advanced concept. So let's just search. This is the prompt. So give me the post related to JavaScript advanced concept. So the thing is, if we just search these things in the Reddit search bar, Reddit doesn't give you all the posts that related to JavaScript advanced concept. It will take your keyword and it will match those keyword with those posts, title or the description. And because these things require brainstorming as a human perspective or AI perspective, so basic general search will not help here. So you need some sort of brainstorming to identify those posts that's actually related to JavaScript advanced concept. So that's why what I'm doing here, I will take that prompt, and we already have 128 posts, all the title and the short description. Now I can just put all the thing to the AI to give me the result. If I now just search with that prompt, then I should get all the related posts, and as you can see that it give me 10 posts. There was 128 posts earlier, but now I have only 10 posts. And what are the posts? The posts are related to my prompt. I asked to give me JavaScript advanced concept, and you can see that all the posts is kind of like similar the advanced concept. So the first one is, could JavaScript have synchronous await? Isn't that sound advanced or something like that? Then we have debouncing basis, throttling, the event loop, virtualized JavaScript. Yeah, that's a advanced concept. Then web workers. Then we have pattern for memory efficient DOM manipulation. Then there is a store selector restructuring. Then we have perplexing JavaScript parsing puzzle. These are like super advanced things. I didn't even know some of the word. So if you think like a general perspective, if we just scroll through all the posts and try to find out what are the advanced concepts that people are posting or people are seeking help on, then it will be really hard. But now with this Chrome extension, it becomes super easy. We will just add any prompt we want to match with our post title and the description. Then we're gonna just search, and then we can see all the posts. There are only 10 posts. Let's say I want to engage or I want to seek knowledge on the post related to event loop. You can see that we have event loop, or maybe I can engage with web workers, or maybe I will go with the pattern because it seems like the score is used like 59 score. We have 15 comments, or I think I should go with the event loop because it have more comments. So what I am going to show you that I can also use this extension to analyze the comment and took out all the related information from all the comment, which also need to be done as well. As so let's just find, okay, I find one. This one is like almost 71 comments. I think this one I'm looking for because there are tons of comments. Now I have to analyze all the comment and I have to find out those summarized version of all the comment or the information that I am seeking from the comment. So the post is about a 10x faster TypeScript, and if you go down, then you can see there are tons of comments and some of the comments are too big, and if you just start reading one by one or maybe 5 or maybe 10, it will take like hours to read all the comments to understand all the context, and which always will be not productive for everyone. And people like someone who have busy schedule is of course going to be like terrible to read all those things. So now you can see that we have the menu and there are another one which is called comment inside. So if I just click on the comment inside, then you can see there are 69 comments and all the comments you can see here. And here the same thing, we have the input. Now we can just search on the comment, or we can ask something that we want to know from all this comment. So first just search about the summarized version of the comments. So give me summary of all the comment. So I don't have time to read all the comments, so I just want the kind of like a summary version of all the comments. So let's ask and see what it actually give me. And as you can see that it gives me a quiet response as like as the ChatGPT or Gemini give. So people are actually discussing about Rust/C#, then performance, implication, WebAssembly, runtime, so on. But let's ask something else. Let's say what are the things people talking about most. So let's start with this one. So it is saying the Go port of TypeScript compiler, performance improvement, impact on the TypeScript ecosystem, then WebAssembly, the role of original TypeScript code base, alternative language, then use of generative AI, and so on. So it's kind of like the summarized version of all the comments. So now let's try with something different. Let's just visit some of the comment and try to seek information. So I think I should search like what are the new idea people are mentioning, because the ideas are important, because TypeScript recently using Go as behind the scenes. So I think that's why this is the post about. So let's just ask what are the new idea people sharing. So with that question, I maybe will know all the things like new to me. So yeah, let's just search it and you can see that what are the idea people are sharing. So excitement about performance improvement. Yes, the most people are sharing that, the excitement, because now it's ported with Go. That means the performance will be increased. That's why we can say 10x faster TypeScript or something like that. Then choice of Go versus Rust. And because we have another alternative choice like Rust, we can also use that for the TypeScript port, but it doesn't use Rust. Instead, it uses Go. So why that used? So that means the question is on the choice. So that's also a part of the discussion. So that's why it gives me like choice of Go versus Rust. Then we have impact on TypeScript developers workflow. So people are also concerning that, okay, is that going to impact on our development workflow or not? Then we have breaking changes things or not. Then of course WebAssembly support, because now it's supporting a really super fast programming language. So is that going to support WebAssembly or not? Then we have the integration with runtime like Ban, Dino, or something like that. And there is another topic which called like LSP, Language Server Protocol. I don't even know about that. So it says that the mention of an actual LSP implementation is seen as good news. So I don't know about this. Maybe I can ask or study these things. But the key point is, if I try to read all the comments and try to find out any single informations like new one, it was really time consuming. Now I can just easily grab those information with like a minute. You can see that this keyword is like new to me. Now I learned a new idea or like new things or new topic. And then there is a like impact of SWC. So I don't even know that what SWC is. So this is like 2 or 3 things I just directly get the idea without just spending hours to read those comments. And now I can just search those keywords in Google to understand what's happening, what are the new idea. And if I try to, let's say, fetch more specific, let's say, give me all the comments that's related to this. So give me comments that related to LSP. So let's see what actually people sharing about LSP. And you can see that all the comments. So this one is the first one. Right now, our focus is on where we can provide the most value, blah, blah, blah. So it's all about like LSP. I think this one is like a bit hidden, but they will also do an actual LSP now. Great news. So there might be some behind the scenes things happening with LSP. I don't know about this keyword. So, but the main perspective is that with this tool, you can just now research a lot while you research by reading those comments and all that stuff. So I think this tool is going to be like really, really helpful if you are a core Reddit user, as mine, because I'm using Reddit often, and it's really time consuming when I have a lot of posts, need to be find out any information or seeking help or whatever. So I think at least this tool gonna solve my problem, as well as if you are the same, then you can also use this tool to improve your productivity, and you can use at least Reddit with more efficient way. So I think that's it for about the whole demo of the Chrome extension that we're going to build. By watching this video, you will gain a wealth of knowledge specifically on how to use TypeScript or React to build Chrome extension using the framework called WXT. And this is a truly impressive framework, enabling you to use front-end framework like React, Vue, Svelte, and Solid to develop Chrome extension, and of course production ready. And I will demonstrate how straightforward it is to use React or TypeScript for this purpose. And I will guide you through the entire project from installation to completion, covering some of the essential concepts like Chrome extension storage, where you can store important information and later you can use those information in your Chrome extension. Then we are going to learn about Chrome extension messaging, how you can send message to content script to background script. Let's say background script to content script, or maybe pop-up to background, or maybe content. So all the messaging stuff, if you are not clear, then you can understand them properly by watching this video. You are going to learn the background script and the menu, how all together work. And additionally, towards the end of the video, I will attempt to incorporate unit testing with Vitest. I will try to showcase how to integrate unit testing in your Chrome extension development process for enhanced stability. And by the end of this video, you will not only learn the development process, but also understand how building a Chrome extension can solve your own unique problems. Overall, it will be very, very worthwhile learning experience. So let's dive into the video. So let's install WXT framework in our desktop with TypeScript and React. And later we are going to install Tailwind CSS for styling. So you have to go to wxt.dev, and in the documentation you will find the installation process. You can use npm, pnpm, ban, yarn, anything. I'm using pnpm, and this is the command to install. So I am in the desktop folder in the terminal. So let's just hit the command. You can use any IDE you prefer. I'm using Visual Studio Code, and it will ask you the project directory. So I'm going to give it like Reddit Assistant. I'm going to give the name of the project Reddit Assistant, and I want it to start with React and pnpm and that's it. So let's move into Reddit assistant folder and open that folder into VS Code. So this is our project. So we have to install all the dependency first. So I'm going to use npm install, and it will install all the dependency from the package.json file. And if I show you the file, then you can see we have dependency of React and React DOM. And for the dev dependency, we have the React type, React DOM type, and we have WXT dev, which is also help to build Chrome extension with React. Then we have Typescript as well as WXT. Now the installation has finished. So let's start the project. So for doing that, you will find the script in the package.json dev, and you will also find the build script as well as for different browser like Firefox, and for Chrome you can just use build. So I'm going to start like npm dev, and it's gonna open a Chrome browser, and in the top of that browser you can see that extension as well as your extension that we have. So if you click on that, then you can see that's the extension which is using React, Typescript and WXT as the framework. So when you close the browser, then it will be gone. And for open the browser again, you can open the terminal and you can press O and enter, then it will again open the browser with the extension install itself. So when we develop Chrome extension with vanilla JS, we have to write the code in JS, then we have to add the extension manually from our manage extension setting in the Chrome browser. Then also we have to load that local file into the Chrome extension. And every time we change any code, we always have to refresh the extension like this. But the cool thing is when we used any framework like WXT or Plasmo, then we don't have to do all the tasks by ourselves. So it actually wrapped with the framework itself. So we just have to develop and it will auto refresh. That means we have the hot reload support, and it will gives you bundling and other feature out of the box. So now let's see the documentation that what's in there about creating the project. So you can create the project with this command, and then also you can create project from scratch. So you have to use pnpm init, then you have to install WXT into your desktop, and then all the other procedure manually. But I prefer to use just single command to actually install all that stuff. So now let's talk about the project structure when we installed initially the project. So if you look into the folder structure, you have a .output directory, which is basically the output folder when we build the Chrome extension. Right now, all the build process happening in our terminal when we run our project. And when we press O and enter, then it actually open the browser, it actually install the Chrome extension in that browser, and we can debug all the stuff. That means the building process happen on the runtime. But when it required to make it production ready, then we have to build the whole extension. So that time we have to use the build command like npm build or pnpm build. And when we do so, then it actually bundle all the code and create a production ready Chrome extension file. And that file or folder actually appear in your .output folder. And you can see that .output/chrome-mv3, that means it's manifest version 3, and all of the asset you can see on that particular folder. So if you want to use the production ready extension in your local browser, then you can just simply move this folder into anywhere, or you can just simply open your Chrome extension manager, and where you can just choose this folder to load that particular extension. So make sure you find the manifest.json file in the root directory and then load the extension, and then it will work as expected. So that's how the build process actually works. And about the folder structure or the project structure, we have WXT folder as well as, which actually holds some of the types that necessary for WXT to manage the project in TypeScript as well as in React sometimes. And then we have the asset folder where you can put all the asset, including CSS, images, all that stuff. And then we have the entry point folder, and which is one of the important folder. We're gonna use it a lot. And the public folder where you can also put some icons that related in your manifest.json file. And also we will get a wxt.config.ts file where we can configure our Chrome extension plugins related to WXT, and so on. So now let's talk about entry points folder. So if you explore the documentation, then you can see the similar kind of structure as I discussed, and you will get a brief summary of all the folder. And I think the documentation is really good. Anybody can understand by reading it. So as you can see in the entry points folder, it will contains all the entry point that get bundled into your extension. That's mean, let's say in your extension you have popup. So if I just open the existing one, then you can see this one is the popup. And when we do any perform in action, then we need JavaScript. And for the popup related action that we write code on JavaScript, which we can say popup script. So that's mean we need some sort of files for handling those scripts. So that's we can call popup and its script. Then also we have, let's say, menu background. So if I just open or right click on any page, then you can see the menu, and there are submenu as well as. So this is also handled in a file in a Chrome extension which is called background.js, or you can call it like background script. And another thing is when we click on any menu, then you can see there are an UI rendered on any page for any Chrome extension. So that's actually rendered from the content descriptor. So there is a file where we write code where we can inject any sort of HTML element into the any web page. So that's we called like content descriptor. So in general, in the entry point folder, we actually put all the file related to the Chrome extensions. Let's say we have popup script, and as you can see in this entry point folder, we already have popup folder, and this popup folder is the popup. If I just open the browser again, then you can see this is the popup, and this is the screen or the code that actually rendered here. This is also an UI, and also this functionality is coming from that code. So this is about the popup. So it's actually contained in the popup folder, and it's a React project. As well as I discussed, we have background script, and this is the script which actually run in the background. And if I just show you from the manage extension, and here you can see there is a term called service worker, and if you click on that, then you will see a DevTools. And this is the DevTools that actually running on the background, and you can see the console log that we have done here, and you can see the browser runtime ID in this object. This is the ID of browser runtime. So that's about the background script. And also we have content script, and as I said, this script will run in any web page. Let's say if I go to visit google.com, then if I just open the console, then you can see there is a log which is hello content, and it is coming from content.js line number 1. And if I show you the content.js, this is the content script, and this is the console log that actually appearing on any web page. So if I visit any web page, right now I am in google.com. So let's say I want to visit reddit.com. So whenever I visit any web page, then you should see that content script is running. Right now you can see that the content script is only matching with google.com. That means this script will only run on the google.com website that's have the domain google.com. So if I just make it something like this, that means it will run on any website. So if I just add a string like this, that means the content script will run or execute on any particular website. So let's just save and try to check. So let's just add this and save it and try to, now let's visit reddit.com. And before that, let's open the console and visit that website. Then you can see that it actually logged our content script log hello content, because we use this particular string for the match, and this means that this script will allow to render on any, to execute on any particular website. So that's mean we can also restricted any kind of website here. So that was the purpose of entry points folder, where we can put all the related Chrome extension script or code inside of this folder, and later when we hit npm build, it actually took all the file and folder code and it actually built into the raw JavaScript code so that we can execute that into the Chrome extension on any browser. So now you might ask that, is it like a convention from WXT framework? I would say, yeah, kind of convention, but there is out of the box feature as well as you can create or add multiple directory. Let's say you want to work with src, like you want to make like src type folder structure. So you can create a src folder and you have to just refer that folder into your wxt.config.ts file. As I discussed, we have this file, and here we have to refer that particular directory to get the source code out from it. And then if you enable that, then you will see the folder structure will be look like kind of this. Previously the entry point was above the source folder, and after enabling the src directory as the main point, we have the entry point folder is inside of that src folder. That's mean you can customize the folder structure based on your need and the project requirement. And if you want to customize more, like you can make modules, you can also declare output directory, public directory, and so on. And that is on your wxt.config.ts file, so you can configure that there. So if you want to learn more about the entry point folder, then you can just visit WXT dev and their entry points documentation, where it clearly mention all the information related to entry point. So as you can see, as I said, that this directory is kind of input when bundling your extension. And if you go below a little bit of that particular documentation, then you can see it can help you to add pop-up, background, content. That means it will not only support like the file naming convention, you can just create also a folder as well as. So let's say you need multiple script file for background, then what you have to do is create a background folder, then create all the related file inside that particular folder, and create a root file called index.ts, where is kind of like the entry point for the background. The same will work for content as well as. So you can create as much file as you want, and make sure you create a folder name with background or content or pop-up, then it will bundle as expected. So it also gives some restriction, like what you shouldn't do. So you can't do something like this, instead you can do this. So I think documentation is really easy for this extension. And also they have a feature called Ask AI, so you can ask anything to this chatbot, which will help you to give more and broader information about the documentation. And I think this is really a cool feature nowadays. So if you stuck on any particular topic or anything that related to WXT, then you can just came here, open the chatbot, and ask question on here. And throughout this project we will need like pop-up, background, and content script, but there are so many script that we usually used in Chrome extension. Sometimes we use side panel, sometimes we have options, sometimes we have dev tools, history, so on. Also we can work like new tab. So there are too many script file we can add in our Chrome extension, which actually serve different and multiple purposes. So you can just simply come into this particular doc and you can see what is the implementation for, let's say, side panel, how you can implement Chrome sandbox, as well as like pop-up and so on. So I think this is going to be the better place to study about the whole framework. So now let's talk about the manifest.json. And you might be wondering that where is the manifest.json file and how we are going to configure it. So where we can put the configuration for manifest.json file. So yeah, that's a valid question. So we have an option to configure our manifest.json file, which is in the wxt.config.ts file. So in this file, we can actually configure the manifest.json file, which is the main entry point of any Chrome extension. So if you work with Chrome extension in Vanilla.js, you notice that we have manifest.json file where we put the Chrome extension name, we put permissions, we put icons, and so on there. So in WXT framework, we can also define them. So you have to just go to the manifest documentation in WXT, and you will see there is a property called manifest inside of the define config object. So that's mean we can just simply grab this and in our code, you can see we have right now modules property. So if I want to add manifest configuration, I can just simply add this property, and this will give you a function which will return all the property, and inside that function you will get a lot of argument that's going to help you to perform some different tasks. Let's say we want to add Chrome extension manifest version 3. So for the by default right now WXT uses manifest version 3, but you can also declare that version 2 if you need. You can just copy this code like manifest version 2, and then you can just add that here. You can see that this is the manifest property, and you should return an object, and inside that object you can pass all the manifest.json's property. Let's say we want to add a name. So what you have to do is just add the name property, and also I want to add the version as well as. So let's add a property called name, and let's say I am adding it like WXT example. I want to add description as well as the version. And as I said, we often need permissions for Chrome extension, and you can also declare it by this, something like this. So in the permissions property you can add array, and in the array you can add all the permission that you need. So when you do so, you should save, and also you should restore the server that you have run. And when you do so, then we should see the Chrome extension name should change to WXT example, as you can see here. And also it have the version and all the description stuff. So if I just go to manage extension, then you can see here that this is the version, this is the name, and this is the description for that particular extension. And if you want to change the icon as well as, you can do so that. So if you go to the doc, you can see there is a property called icon, and you can do that by this. So in the manifest object, you can just declare a icon property, and inside that you have to give all the size as well as those file path. And by default, all the icon is actually taking from the public folder. Inside that public folder, we have icon. And if you just change this icon, rename this, then it should work as expected. So you don't have to configure everything here. So you can just simply create those icons separately with all these size 16, 32, and then replace all those icons here, and all the icon will work as expected. You don't even have to add icon path here manually. So that's how beautiful it is to configure your manifest.json in WXT framework. So now let's install Tailwind CSS in our project, and I'm going to install Tailwind CSS version 4. So you have to go to the doc and the installation section. You will find there are 4 or 5 type of installation process. So for using Tailwind CSS in WXT framework, we have to follow the post CSS method. So let's just copy the command. So because we started the dependency management with pnpm, so we have to make sure it's pnpm. That's fine. Our installation has finished. Now we have to follow this step, and then we have to create a file called postcss.config.mjs. So let's create this file, and in that file we have to paste this code. It's like the postcss plugin for Tailwind CSS, and then we have to import Tailwind CSS in our CSS file. And as I said earlier, that in our entry point we have all the source codes that's going to be bundled in our Chrome extension. And by default, when we created the project, we have a pop-up directory where we have a React project. And also if we need some sort of React component in another part, let's say in the content part, then we can also create React component and we can render that in the content script. But for now, let's just focus on the pop-up and use the Tailwind CSS into our pop-up script to check that Tailwind CSS is working or not. So we have to go to the styler CSS, and you can see there are 2 CSS files. So I'm going to remove one, and then I also don't need the app.tsx, and let's just remove that as well as from the main.tsx, and let's just add simple text hello world. And as you can see, we are injecting styler CSS. So now I can just simply import Tailwind CSS here. You can see that. So that's another step. And now we have the last step, which is we have to add the CSS directory into our HTML to point the styling. So if I go to the index.html, it's also the wrapper of the React DOM. So we can just just use that here. So I have to just add that under the meta tag or inside the head tag, and you have to point like dist/styler css. So I think it should work, and that's it. So now let's try to add something like some sort of style here. So let's say this one, to check that our Tailwind CSS is working or not, because it's React, so we have to use class name like this, and that's it. So let's just run the project, the npm tab, and we should see the style in the pop-up of our project. So if I click on the extension and open this one, then you can see that the text showing hello world, as well as it has underscore, and the text size is 3xl. So let's verify with some other property like color. So bg, this one, let's see, and as you can see, the color is also working. That's mean Tailwind CSS is successfully installed in our Chrome extension project. Now if we need React component in our content script, we can also create those components, and we can also use Tailwind CSS for actually the styling stuff. So that's mean throughout the whole extension we can use it anywhere. And of course we have to point the styler css file everywhere. Let's say in the content.ts file or in the content script, when we are going to render any component into the UI. Let's say we have in the google.com, and our Chrome extension actually open some sort of UI in any web page, and we want to style that UI with Tailwind CSS. And that's mean whenever the UI render on the web page, we have to render the UI as well as we have to inject the style into that UI, so that the UI actually got the style from Tailwind CSS. So I'm gonna show you the whole thing a little bit later in this video when we are gonna develop the component and all this stuff. So for now, focus on the other things. So for now, let's just implement the pop-up page for our Chrome extension, which is going to help us to configure our Chrome extension settings. And mainly it's gonna help us to take the API endpoint and the API key from the pop-up, so that we can actually store those LLM information into the Chrome storage, and when we will perform some sort of prompting, then it will take those URL and key to request to the server and give us the desired response. So that's why we need an UI. When we will open the Chrome extension, we should see a form where we can input the endpoint as well as the key, and we should save that particular information into the Chrome storage, so that when we right click on any web page, and when we click the menu like post inside or comment inside, then we should see all the UI and all the stuff working fine. So inside the pop-up, I will start with creating a component folder. That's mean this component folder will be contain all the components that related to pop-up. And if we have some sort of component that we can reuse throughout the whole Chrome extension, we can just simply put that component folder outside of the entry point. Later we can just use those component inside all of our script. So in the components folder, I will start with the main component that's going to be rendered in the pop-up, and which will be sort of like a form. So let's just create the file called credential from the tsx, and in this form I'm going to add 2 input, and then when we will submit that form, then our data will be stored in the Chrome storage. So that will be the task for now. So let's create a component and return the same text that we returned from here, and we are going to import that component inside of our main.tsx file. So that's our component called credential form, and we're gonna import it here. Your Chrome extension becomes too large, then you can follow the src directory style pattern, where you can just organize all of your folder pages and other stuff to actually make the whole things work. So that's our component. Now it should work as the earlier time. So yeah, it's working fine. So now let's try to design the form. So that's a simple form design, and I don't want to waste your time to actually show you or code you the whole design. What I can do is just explain you how actually the components design is working, what are the styles I have given, why I am given. So I think that will also save your time, and as well as we have functionality logic, so we also have to understand them. So I think better we should understand the logical part, and from the UI is quite easy, and you can also generate UI from nowadays ChatGPT or Gemini. So I don't think like showing you all the UI related stuff will not productive. We can instead focus on the logical part. Let's say we have to handle the form, then we have to save the information into the Chrome storage, and then all the other stuff. So I think I will show you all of them. I think that's going to be better way. So with this UI, I also need icon, and I want to use the icon library called Lucid React, and I have to install it like npm install Lucid React, and it has a lot of icon and all are free. So I think it's a good choice to start with icon. So I already have a saved icon here, and you can see the suggestions I'm getting, and that's it. So that's sort of the credential form, and I'm gonna explain it now. Let's just visually see that's what's going on in our UI. So if I just open, then you can see here is our UI. We have an header, we have an h1 title and a description. So if I just show you the code, that this is h2, and we have the p tag with some common style, and in the top of the wrapper you can see I used dark mode, and also I used width of 600 pixel. So let's say if I just remove this width, then you can see our Chrome extension width shrink and it becomes too small. So every time when you work with pop-up, you must have to give some sort of width manually into your pop-up in the wrapper element. So for our case, because in our main.tsx I'm rendering the main component like credential form, so we must have to put any width here. And if we don't put any width, then the UI will be shrink, and the width will be taken from its children element. So let's say in the children element we have width of 400 pixel, then the whole pop-up will be took 400 pixel. And also don't use like huge width. Better is 800 pixel to 400 pixel is kind of like a standard size for the pop-up. So that's why I have put the width here. Then I took a minimum of screen height, and then in the wrapper I also took the full width. So because as you can see in the UI, for showing all those form we need full width, and all the stuff is like the basic design, kind of like the dark mode. And here this is kind of like the form where I added the background color, added some shadow and some padding, and then that's the form. I didn't use like SharpCN or any sort of library. You can use that as well. As if you want to watch a video about how you can use different library on your Chrome extension UI library, then just comment down below so that I can also list down those video on my to-do list. So that's a simple form. You can see that we have the label and we have the input field, and we can also use validation from managing like React hook form or some sort of other form management library. But for now, just I'm using like simple HTML from validation. That's why I just use required. And we have API key input field. That's the kind of same input, but I want to add like in the UI, you can see that we have a input field where we can put any key, and we shouldn't see those key. I think there should be an icon to actually work with that particular input field. Let's say we have paste the key. Now we can toggle that icon. It will be like eye icon, and we can visually show the key, and initially the key will be hidden, some sort of password field. So let's just implement that functionality. So first we have to declare an state. So I will give a name like show API key and set show API key. That means it's like a Boolean state in the React, so that we can toggle and change the value so that we can get the desired result. And after our input field of the API key, we are going to add that particular icons to actually toggle. And that's our icon, and it's a wrapper, and I added absolute style so that I can position this icon inside of that particular input field. And you can, as you can see, I just send it back to the right side, and I just make it flex and give some padding from the right side so that it actually plays in our desired UI. And it's also wrapped with buttons so that we can also handle the toggle. And as you can see, we just added the on-click event, and the set show API key will be change our state of this, so that initially it will be false. That means we are not going to see the key, but when we click on that, then we will show that key. But how we are going to manage that? we are going to manage it by here. In the input field, there is a property called type, and we can also set that text and password. So when it's password, then it will not show the key, but when it text, then it will show the key. And based on our state, React state, which is show API key, we are going to show that particular value. So that's why we can add type here, and this is our set method that will change the value, and these are the icon that will visually show on the UI. So let's just import the icon. So I'm gonna use the icon from Lucid React, and also there is a eye off and there is a eye. That's mean based on our state, we are gonna show that icon, and this is the text. When we hover over on that icon, we can also see that icon. So that's why this is kind of like the same thing, like we compare with the state. Let's just save and try to check the logic. So, and as you can see that I don't have to refresh or like start the server again. It's working instant because we have the hot reload feature. And here you can see the icon got like 2 left, which I wasn't expected. So let's just try. Right now you can see that is showing kind of dot. So if I click on this icon, then it become like text, but the icon doesn't position well. I want to position it sort of here. So let's just fix this. So I think I have placed the eye icon bottom of the wrapper, like the input field. And as you can see in the wrapper of that input field, we have a property called relative. So now if I just place this here, then I can position that icon inside of that input field because we have the wrapper with relative style. So now I can apply the absolute style. So that's it for the fix. So let's see the UI is working fine or not. And as you can see, it's placed properly in position. And when I click, the icon become changed to the eye off and the eye, and that's kind of like the functionality. And if I click on the save, then you can see the validation is showing because I added the required type or required attribute in both of the field, because I have added required attribute both of the input field. So that's when we are gonna click that save button, then it's actually asking to fill the information. And if I show you the save button, it's like just a simple button, and I took the whole width and add some style and some colors. And in the bottom I have some description as well as the copyright stuff. I just took the full year from new date and then check a condition to that is greater than 2025 or not. If so, then we're gonna show only 2025. If not, then we're gonna show 2025 to the upcoming year. So that's like a simple logic. So now let's handle the save functionality, because I think from the UI end we are kind of done for the UI. Now we just have to check and handle the save functionality, that so that we can input any URL as well as any key, and we can save that, and we can just store that information into the Chrome storage, so that later whenever we are going to use our Chrome extension in Reddit, and if we just try to communicate with the LLM, then we can just grab those information from the Chrome storage and send back API request to the LLM server. So for managing the whole thing, I would love to create a hooks, because as I said earlier that we are going to use this information in our various script. Let's say we are going to use it in the content script. So, and in the content script, we also going to render the React component. And if we create a common hook for storing those information into the Chrome storage as well as getting those information from Chrome storage, then I think we can reuse the hook in several portions. We can reuse the hook here where we can store the information, as well as we can use the same hook in our content script where we are gonna request API for the LLM. So that's why I'm going to create a hooks folder inside of the entry point folder, and here it will contain all the hooks that we are going to reuse throughout the whole Chrome extension. And I would love to give a name of our first hook, which is going to be from data.ts, because we are not rendering any JSX, so we can just simply use TS. And that's our hook. You can see I have declared a type, which is iForm type, and for our UI you can see that we have endpoint and API key. So there is a field called API key and another field for endpoint, and both will be string. And I also need this particular type to use everywhere, so that's why I just exported it here. And that's our hook called use from data. So if you know how to create custom hook, then it's really become easy to understand what's happening here. Otherwise, from my explanation, there you have to create a function, something like that, but you have to use the convention like use, then you have to use the camel case sort of formation for actually naming the hook, and then you can return any sort of object array, and inside that particular function you can call any built-in hook, and also if you want to call some other custom hook, you can call that as well. As so that's the beauty, where you can just create a function and you can call React hook, as well as you can use this particular hook into any React component. And here I have taken a user state, so let's just import the state from React. So we have to import the React and then react.useState with the form iFromData type, and that's like the form data, and then we have a method called setFromData where we will use to set our form information. That's our state. And in the use effect, I did some logic, which is Chrome. You can see that chrome.storage.local.get, and I'm actually taking the information from the Chrome storage to set our state. Now you will ask why. So when we will click on the save button from the pop-up, what we are going to do, we are going to take our form information and we are going to set it in our Chrome storage. And whenever we refresh or we come back in any page and try to open that particular form, then we should see our older data that we already have been saved. So that case, we must need to fetch that data from the storage when initially our UI rendered. So if we have those data, then we can just set that data into our state. And if we don't have, then no issue, there will be the default value that will be shown into that particular input field. So that's why I have to fetch those information from the Chrome storage, and then we have to set that value in the local state. And also I'm going to save the information into the storage. We're gonna do it here, but because we are making the hook reusable, so I have to make this hook some sort of way that we can just call this hook, and it will before it render, it will call the use effect hook, and it will try to fetch the data from the Chrome storage, then and it will also store that data in our local state. And as the hook return, we are returning the from data as well as the set from data. That means whenever we will call the use from data, we can simply get the from data and also the method that we can change that data, so that whenever we are going to use it, either it's in the pop-up, either it's in the content script, we can just simply call it and we'll easily get our Chrome storage data. But now you can see that I'm getting an error and it's showing like cannot find Chrome, and it's a type error. Why? Because we are using Typescript in Chrome extension development, and we have to refer the Chrome type so that we cannot get the runtime error. So for getting rid of from our runtime error in the Chrome, which is helping us to set and get data into Chrome storage, which is kind of similar like local storage, but when we write code about local storage, it doesn't give error. But for the Chrome, because it's API from Chrome or the browser, we must need to declare the type, but also we must need to install the dependency for the type sometimes. So we have to install that. So we're going to use npm install dev dependency type /Chrome, and that's the package that's actually resolve all the type related to the Chrome API. And you can see after install the type, the error gone. Sometimes the error will be not go away, so you have to add another line here in the wxt.config.ts file. In the define config, as the first property, you have to add the property called extension API. And because we are building this Chrome extension for Chrome, so we are going to use the Chrome API for the storage and other stuff, so we must have to declare the extension API, and for our case is Chrome. And if you got the error and if you install the type, and after installing the type dependency, if the error not resolved, then you must have to add the extension API, and when you do the both thing, then the error should gone. So our hook is kind of complete. So this hook will call and it will get the from data information from the storage, and it will set that into our from state. And now because we have set from data, we can just use it in our credential from to actually store that, or like use that hook store as a kind of local state. I would not say it's a store, it's like a state, because we are not storing in like globally. It's like a state that we can just reuse here. So if I just call this use from data in our credential from, then we can simply get the set from data as well as the from data. Now when we are gonna save the from information, we can directly change the value in with set from data method, and it's gonna change the store data, but it will not store that into the storage. But when we will render this component again, like let's say I refresh the page and came again and open the pop-up, then what it will do, it will call the hook, it will call use effect, it will try to fetch the data from the storage. If we have the data, then it will set that data in the state, and then because we are using this state, then now we can just simply use the from data dot endpoint for our endpoint field. As you can see, in the input value, I can add from data dot endpoint, and the same thing I can also do in the API key as well. As the value will be for from data dot API key, and you can see the suggestion from the VS Code. So the hook will actually help us to not write redundant logic, because if I wasn't create the hook, then I have to write the same logic here. I have to fetch the data from the storage, then I have to set that into the storage, into the state, then I have to show them here. So I think better we should create hook separately to manage some common task. And now I have set the value, so we also have to set those value when we actually on change our input field. That's mean we need a on change handler that's going to call, and that's going to, and as you can see, Copilot actually suggesting a code. So this handle submit will actually change our set from data. So that's our handle change, and it is taking a event, and it's like the same event we got from any input field, HTML input field. So we have to declare the on change method here, and we have to call the handle change, and we are getting the event here, and inside that event we'll get the name, we'll get the value, and also I have declared the name of that particular input as the same name we have used in our from data. You can see that we have API key and also the endpoint, and when we are getting the name and the value, now I can just simply set the from data with the name and value. And as you can see, set from data have a callback which also give us previous data, and so that we doesn't lose our old data. Let's say we are changing the endpoint field. If I don't use the old data, then the data for the endpoint or the API key will be loose. So if I change this one, the other data will be loosed. So that's why we also have to keep our previous data intact so that we can lose the older data. And as you can see, I also have added the types, and this type is exported from our hook here, so I can just use it anywhere. And when we are setting the from data, as you can see, I am just setting the previous data, and I am taking the name as a key and the value for that property. So as you can see, we have API key and the endpoint. So whenever we call this function, you can see I called in the API key, it will change the value. And if I call the same function here, let's say in our endpoint field, then it should also call the same function, but it will give the different name and the value will be different. So let's say I'm going to console log some of our data. So I think the from data, yep. So let's just console log it and see what's happening. So we have to open the extension, and for the checking the console log, you have to open the dev tool from here. You can see we have inspect button, and when you click that, then you will see the dev tool like this. And initially you can see these are the object that actually showing. So that's the from data, and we are getting those information empty. So now let's just fill up some of the informations. So if I just change, and then you can see the console log that's happening. Even I change this one, then you can see the value. So that's how this hook actually changing its state and changing the value. And now we need one thing, which is we need to handle the save button. So whenever we change, we got the value. Now we have to get the value and set or store that value into our Chrome storage. And when we do so, then later when we come back, we can get the data by this use effect. So let's just add the logic here. So there will be a handle submit function which will also took event, and this will be a form event. because we have declared a form here, and whenever we click on the button of our save, which is kind of like submit button, so whenever we click, then it will actually submit the form so that we can grab the event from here. So as you can see, it's suggesting on submit, handle submit. So this is the function. It will call our function and it will pass the event, and we have to prevent that default behavior from that click. So if we don't handle that, so whenever we click on the save button, it will actually reload the page, because by default when we submit any form, it actually reload the whole page. So we have to prevent the default behavior so that it doesn't reload. Instead, we can use any other functionality. So you can see that e.prevent default is the method to actually handle the default behavior. Now you can see that I have added chrome.storage.local.set. So in the previous hook, you can see that we use chrome.storage.local.get, which is the method for getting the information from the storage, and the method called .set is the method that actually store the information into the storage. It's kind of similar like local storage, get and set, so not any complex thing here. And it will take an object, and inside that object you can give any property. So I'm giving the whole from data here, and because I'm giving or storing from data with the name of the property from the object, that's mean when we are getting the data, we also have to pass like from data as the property to get the data, and we have to pass like an array, and inside that array we can pass all the property. Let's say during storing information, I can add multiple property here. Let's say I can add A, B, and then C. So, and all these properties should have value. And for getting those value, I can also pass those value here like A, V, and C as a string format by using comma. And that will give us all of its value, and we have a callback function for this get method, which will give us the result. And the result, you will get all the property. For the result.form data, we have the form data. If we want to get the value for A, then we will have result.a, and then you will get the desired result. So that's how we can get the information from the storage. And for storing that's kind of same story. We have to add the property and the value, then it will store into the storage. And it will also give you a callback function, which actually call when the storage successfully saved the information. And as you can see, I displayed a toast message, which is by the way, I need a library for displaying the toast. So I'm using React Hot Toast. So I'm using React Hot Toast. The library is really cool, and it's really small as well as. So if I just click, then you can see the cute toast message appear. And you can also customize that. You can also use Tailwind CSS customization as well as. So I think that's the perfect toast message I want to use. So I want to use this one, yes, toast.success. But before that, I have to install that. So npm add React Hot Toast. So let's just install the package. And after finishing the installation, we also have to wrap the toaster in our wrapper on React. So you will get the example like you can see here, add toaster to your app, and then you can use it anywhere. So we have to add this toaster component in our wrapper applications. So our wrapper application is in the main.tsx, where we just passing our main component inside react.streak mode. And here we can just simply pass our toaster, and it will come from React Hot Toast like this. And when we do so, then we're ready to render the toast in anywhere in our application, in any component. And now we can just simply import that React Hot Toast like this, and we're ready to use it anywhere. And you can use like success, and we also have some other method called, I think, warning or errors, something like that. You will get all of the method in the documentation. Let's say for the error, that's the error toast.error. And for the promise, you can also handle promise, as well as you can handle some multi-line text. You can see the toast example here. You can also find the dark mode. If you want to render JSX, you can also do that. So that's also a great feature here. You can just directly render a JSX or any sort of React component like this. And also I can use like custom position. You can see like bottom, left, right, whatever. So that's a really amazing library for rendering the toast. So let's just now check all the functionality is working fine or not, because that's the handle submit method that's gonna took all the information, all the form information, and it's gonna set those information into the storage. And when we refresh the page and try to open the pop-up again, we should see our stored information displaying in our input field. So that's the Chrome extension, and if I just open the pop-up, then that's our UI, which is working. Let's just visit any website. For now, let's visit Google, and now let's open the pop-up and try to save some information. And you can see that it's showing enter a valid URL, because in the input field of the endpoint, I added a type called URL, and I also added required, and both of these will make sure that the field information will be endpoint. It must be endpoint. You can't give any other text. So that's why we are getting error for the valid endpoint. So let's add like google.com. So I'm gonna grab that endpoint here and I'm gonna paste it like this. And if I save, then the older error gone. Now it's asking to give me the key, and if I just save that value like this, and if I toggle over, then we can see the value as well as the value will be gone. So let's just save it, and you can see the toast message is displaying properly. So let's just click it that again, and you can see the toast message. So now I have to check, because the data is stored in the storage. Now even I just refresh and come back again to check that my data should appear on the input field, and the data is showing perfectly here. You can see that's how cool it is. Now throughout the whole Chrome extension, I can just use these two value anywhere in the Chrome extension. And if you want to just console log what's happening, you can also do that. So you have to just go to use from data, and inside that use effect, you can add a console log inside here, or maybe in the upper line, so that you can check that what actually the result is giving, and when you mistake this field, what happening. So you can explore that as well, as it's kind of same like local storage. So that's kind of straightforward to store information in the storage. Now I think we have completed the main part, or like not main part, it's like a major part where we can configure the our credential, mostly going to be the endpoint, and we are going to use Gemini, so that so we are going to use the Gemini endpoint as well as the key to store that into the Chrome storage. And then in the other script like background or the content, we will use those information. And how we are going to use that? That's simple. We are just simply going to call use from data, and it will call and set the data from the storage, and we'll get those data directly here. And in the other part of our application, we don't have to manipulate the data, so we can just simply use the from data in anywhere. So that's how the React hook will help us here to develop reusable functionality, so that we can easily manage our feature. So now we already added that logic to store information into the storage, mostly the credential. Now we have to use that credential, we have to perform the other task. And as you saw the demo section of this video where I showed you, there are two menus which will actually clickable when we right click, and there will be the Chrome extension name that we have, and when we click on that menu, it will appear another menu like the sub menu, and we can click both of that. Let's say the post inside. So when we click on the post inside, it will open a pop-up and it shows all the subreddit posts. So let's visit Reddit, and let's visit the JavaScript subreddit, and you can see there are lots of posts. And what I want to do, I want to right click and I want to click on that post inside menu, and there should be a pop-up, and in that pop-up I want to fetch all the posts that already rendered in the DOM into that particular model. So that's the goal right now. But before I think I have to work with the menu. So how we can add those menu? So for adding those menu, we have to work with background script. And as you can see in the entry point, when we created the project, we already have a file called background.ts, and this file actually ran in the background. And here, because it's run on the background, we can run any script that will trigger every time, or it will trigger when we installed the Chrome extension. And I want to grab that event. Let's say when we install the Chrome extension, I want to grab that event and I want to create the context menu. So here, when we right click and all the menu we see is called context menu. So we can also create multiple context menu here, and we want to create it when the Chrome extension will be installed. So we have to grab that particular event here. But before that, I want to create a folder called background. I don't want to use this file because, as you can see, for the pop-up I'm going to use folder convention, and for the content I'm going to also follow the folder convention, not the file convention, because my script could go or could become larger. So one file will not handle all the code. So I want to create the folder, and it's just a background as a name, and I can just simply move that file and I can just rename it index.tss. So as I said earlier that you have to point a root file that's gonna point the folder. So for the index.ts, it will point as a background script file. And now I can create multiple files here and I can reuse them inside my entry point of the background file. So for creating context menu, first we need the permission. As I said that we also have to declare permission like this. So we have to add the context menu permission, otherwise we can't create or we can't access context menu. So for the permission, I need several permission. So I need active tab permission. That means, let's say I have opened 3 tabs and I want the permission of the active tab. So that's why I need that one. Then I need scripting. It's gonna help like script, like inject any script on any page. Let's say we have several web page and we want to render anything. In our case, we are gonna apply the extension in Reddit. So we have to render React code into our Reddit web page. So that's mean we also need the permission for scripting. Then you can see that context menu. That's the permission that will help us to create context menu. When we right click, we will see that menu. And we also need the tabs permission and the storage that we already have. Otherwise, we can't store our information into the popup, or like from the popup to the commit storage. So we must have to pass the storage permission. And there is another one which is declarative net request. So it's kind of like a network related permission. For our case, it doesn't require for now, so I can just remove that thing. So for the permission stuff, I think these are the permission that we need for our extension. So if later we need any other, then I'm gonna add that. Now I have to create like the menus, but before that I have to handle the on install event. So when I install the Chrome extension in the browser, I have to grab that event and I have to create that menu. So I'm going to remove this portion, and as I showed you in my earlier section, then when this console log actually run, you can just check that particular section. It's on the demo section, I guess, or maybe in the next section. So that's our method, as well as we also have to use a method called main. So we have to use a method called main, and that's the main method which will run in the background. And before it was like the simple function that is kind of like define background. That's a function that's actually returning a callback, and in the callback we have the script or the code. But I want to make it the standard way, and that's why we have to use like a function called main, and this is the default function that will run when you install the Chrome extension or the procedure when it runs. And for getting that install event, we have to use the method from the Chrome API. So it's called chrome.runtime.onInstall.addEventListener, and this is the event that actually triggered when we actually install the Chrome extension. And if I just console log, then you can see what's happening. So it should be the first install. So that's it. So let's just see when it actually run. So as you can see, that's our browser, and I have to go to the manage extension as I showed earlier, that we have to click on the service worker, and that's our dev tool. And as you can see, it's actually run, and it ran when we install. So you will not see in the real time, because when we save or refresh, the whole thing actually work under the hood, so you will not get that particular log real time. What do you get? The executed one. So that's what happening. So now we can ensure that it will call in when we install the Chrome extension. Now we have to just create the menu, context menu. And for creating context menu, as you can see, Copilot is suggesting me how we can create the menu. So we have to use chrome.contextmenu.create method, and we can pass an object, and inside that object you must have to provide an ID, and this ID is the ID for that particular menu. If you don't give that, then it will throw error, or you can't access that menu, or you can't get the handleation from that menu. So you must have to give the ID, and you can give the title. This title will work like the level. And for the context is here we can just declare all. That's mean all the this menu will be appear everywhere in every page. You can also use some sort of different type. Let's say there are action, audio, browser action, editable, iframe, image. There are tons of stuff. Let's say if you use image, then when you right click on any image, then this menu will be appear. Otherwise this menu will not appear anywhere. If you use all, then it will open everywhere. If you use like launcher or the page or video, then it will work as that particular property. So I'm going to use like all because I want that extension to be open in everywhere from the page. So when I just do this, and if I right click, then you can see that's the menu example, and you can see our icon because I didn't change the icon yet, so that's why it's showing the default icon from WXT framework. So that's our menu. So you have to right click and then you can find the menu. So now you can say that how we can handle this one. Yes, we are coming, like how we can handle, and also we need submenu because we have two menu which will help to work with post as well as the comment. So we need two more submenu. So I have to create submenu as well as. So let's remove this and create our main menu and the submenu. So that's going to be our two menu. And as you can see, chrome.context menu.create, and I give the name called ID, and the title is post insight, and the context is all. And the same will go for the comment as well as comment insight, then comment as a ID context equal to all. That means our menu should open in every page, and now we should see the submenu, and you can see that we have two submenu here. And when I'm clicking on any of the submenu, now we have to handle that functionality. So as I said that in the Chrome extension development, we are talking with different script by messaging. So there is a term or topic called messaging that help to communicate with background script to pop-up script as well as pop-up script to background script or content script. So the functionality is when we will click on this menu on any web page, or like specifically in the Reddit, we want to open a model. That's when we have to handle that event first. So when we click, then we should have an handler that will handle that event of that particular menu, and we will get the ID of that menu, and then we are going to send that message to our content script. So you might ask why, because in any web page, when we want to render any UI on that particular web page through Chrome extension, we must have to use content script. So that's why we have to send the connection or the signal to our content script that I have clicked on the post inside menu or the comment inside menu. We're going to pass the ID of that particular menu in the content script through messaging, so that content script will understand that which menu have actually clicked. So in the content.ts, you will see the default code. Here we can match any website. That means it will execute on any website. And in the main function, we can actually receive that message. So we have to send the message from here when we click, and then we have to receive that message, and based on the message information, we can now just render any React component in this particular content TSS script. So that's how actually the flow work. So let's just implement the things. So first we have to handle the menu click, and as you can see, it's already giving the suggestion like chrome.runtime.onMessage.add event listener. That's another function or the method that's helped to grab the menu message. So that's our corrected code. That's our corrected code, where you can see it's calling the method, the same method coming from Chrome, but the different method, like the different object, like context menu. Earlier it was coming from the runtime because we have to check the installation event. That's why we have to use runtime. But for grabbing the menu click or menu event, we have to use the context menu as the object. And as I told you, we have to give the permission here. Otherwise, we will not be able to use this object from the Chrome. And that's it. Context menu.onClick.add event listener. It will give you a callback function with the promise format. You can get the information of that menu as well as the tab, like the current tab, which current tab you are in and where you are actually clicking. So let's say I am clicking on the google.com, or there are multiple tabs. So if I click from here, then it should give the tab ID and also the menu information. So now I can just use those information and I can send them back to the content script. And how I'm doing that, I am checking with the ID because I already declared the ID here. So I will get the ID into the info.menu item ID. You can name it anything, but good is just put the name of info, and then info.menu item ID is the exact ID of the menu ID, like this. So we'll get like post and the comment, and we are grabbing those value and we are checking as the condition, and we are putting our condition for sending message to the content script. So for sending message to the content script, we have to use tabs. As you saw, we have given the permission of tabs, and now we can use chrome.tabs.send message. That means this is the method send message, and of course it should be from tabs. It will allow you to send message on any tab. So if you just call this method from any script, let's say if I just simply call this from popup, I can also do that. Also I can do the same thing from content as well as. So we just have to pass the tab ID and the message that we want to send. So this send message will require two parameter, and then one will be kind of like a callback. So the first one is the tab ID, and the second one is the message or the information that you are going to send. So for the tab ID, because we are using onClick.add event listener, onClick.add listener from context menu, then we'll simply get the tab ID from here. So tab.id, the tab is coming from the second argument from our callback, and the tab.id is the first argument to identify that where I'm gonna send the message or which tabs and which content script. And then we have to pass the action, so or like any data. So I can just pass any string, so better you should pass an object. So that's our data, and I'm just simply passing the menu ID, the post. And the third one is the function that actually run when the message actually successfully sent. So if you got the message, let's say you sent the message to that particular tab, and of course you also have to receive that or like listen that particular message. So let's say this is like a kind of sending it generally. That means when I just declare this code, it will generally send that message to that particular tab. But the thing is, if I want to grab that message in popup, I have to listen that particular message or the signal to the popup, and also I can listen the signal to the content, as well as I can listen the same signal in the background.js as well as. So it's like a general message you can send to any tab, but later in any other script you have to receive that signal, and because we are getting the data, based on the data you can actually perform different tasks. So let's say I pass like action equal to post. So if I listen the signal in my content script, and if I check with the data either it's post or not, then I can just handle it differently. So that's the whole thing actually work. So you have to pass the message generally like this, and when you pass that, there is a function callback which will give like the response, and this response is when you received that message. Let's say I will show you the example how you can receive that message. That you can see that's showing that particular suggestion from the copilot. You also have to use chrome.runtime.onMessage. That's gonna help to get the signal generally from the tab, because we're passing the ID, we'll get that message on that particular tab. And now the help of this method, we can just simply grab that particular message, and here it will give a callback function where you will get other function, other property, like the request will give you the information. And as you can see, I'm receiving the request.action. If it's post, then I can identify that it's the menu called post I have clicked from the background script or like the menu. And here you can see send response, and that's the response function that we can call, and we can also pass any sort of data. And when we call this send method, send response method, it will actually call here. That means that's the method we will get. Let's say we are going to pass any data from this. Let's say we received the message, we perform some functionality. Now we want to send back some data to the sender where it actually come. So I can just simply call this function, and the response I can get the response data. So that's how the whole thing, like messaging things work. There are some package or plugin from WXT to handle all the messaging for different browser together. Right now I'm focusing on Chrome. So if you have the extension for multiple browser, let's say Firefox, Opera, or Edge or Chrome, then you have to use a packaging library provided by WXT or any other open source. So there are several. So if I show to you, so if you go to the WXT documentation, then you will find a section called messaging, and if you click on there, then you can see it actually suggesting you to use some sort of library for handling the messaging for different browser. You will get TRPC Chrome, that kind of like the messaging library for handling Chrome messaging, and there another one which is EXT Breeze. Then we have WebEXT Core /messaging. So these are all the library that's actually help to communicate with between scripts. So if you are targeting multiple browser, I highly recommend use any library. Don't just only use Chrome, because it will only work on the Chrome, not on the other browser. So that's actually how we can handle message. So in summary, we have to send the message with the tab ID and the action, and that's for the post, and we have for the comment as well. So that's for the comment. So if I just put any other different data set like this, I can just pass that, and later I can grab that information in the content descript with the request.action checking that data or the ID is matching with mine or not. And as a callback function, I can pass anything from the receiver where I receive the message or the signal, and I can just pass any sort of data. So let's now check that the messaging is working or not. So I have the menu, and when we click on the post, then it should send the message to the content descript, and it should log this, and it should also send back the status to our background script. So we should see all the log, and as you can see the response log, so this one should render on the background dev tool, not in the content dev tool, because we are getting managing or handling this in the background script. So let's check that. That's our extension, and let's just go our service worker dev tools. Here it is. So that's for the service worker, and let's just go to Google, and let's also open our content terminal, because we are gonna render or inject the content script. So we can just inspect any web page, and here we can see the log of our content script code. So if I now just click on post inside, then I should see the message here. But as you can see, I'm getting the response, but it's getting undefined, and it's showing unchecked runtime last error, could not establish connection, receiving end does not exist. So this is kind of like a common error people face while messaging to different script. So for resolving that issue, first you have to check that you have entered any URL or not inside of your input field of the, or like the search field on the browser. So for resolving that issue, you must first have to check that you have entered any valid URL or not. Right now you can see I didn't enter any valid URL. I just opened a new tab from Chrome, and because we are checking every URL that match with https:// something like that, so when we click or open any new tab without any URL, definitely we are not getting any message from that, because it's not any website. It's just a default web page that's opening when we just open the tab. So that's why when we click, nothing happening. Even we saw in the DevTools, we can't see any message. So that's why we must have to visit any website. So let's say visit google.com and close all the tab. And now, as you can see here, we got the message. It's like, not message, it's like the initial console log. So you can see it in the main function, we have console log hello content. That's mean whenever the content script successfully run, we will got this particular message, like the console log. That's mean our content script working fine. Now we have to receive that information, and also we have to send that information back to our background. So let's now just click on our menu. So I right click on anywhere, and then I can click on the post inside, and here you can see I got a message. I received the message in content script post action received. That's the received console log, and that's mean we successfully sent, otherwise we can't receive back. So for checking that, we have to open the DevTools from the service worker, and you can see this is where we got the response. And if you click on the code, then it's the code that's showing that it's on the background folder index.ts file, and that's the line, that's the condition that's showing that code, and that's the response. So if I just click the comment, let's say the comment inside, then I'm getting the response back, as well as I should see the response here. That means the messaging is working fine between content script to background, and both vice versa. So that's how we actually handle or send message between each script. Now we can just simply receive that particular message in our content script, and we can render the UI in any web page. Because our Chrome extension is fully focused on Reddit, so we have to must add the match with Reddit URL, so that the Chrome extension only appear on the page called Reddit. And we can also receive multiple signal from multiple script. Let's say if I just go to the popup, and in the popup dot let's say main.tsx file, or in the component from the React, here I can also just send message from the popup as well. As that's not an issue. I can just simply copy the same code what we did here, like chrome.contextmenu.onClick, and I can just simply send message from popup script as well as, and that message I can grab in the content script, as well as if I want to grab that in the background, I can do that as well as. So let's say in the background script, I will get the same code like this here. So if I just give this code, then I will get the same signal here as well as. So if I just remove this particular code section and try to send the message from the background JS and also receive the message from the background JS. So let's see it worked or not. So for doing that, we have to open our dev tools from the service worker. So let's just click post inside, and you can see we are getting the same error and the response is undefined because we are just communicating with background to background. So that doesn't make sense. So that's why you sometimes have to use that in the different script like this, and when we do that, then the whole things work fine. So if I just click now, then you can see the response as well as you can see the response here. So that's mean if you try to receive the same message or something like that, you're not able to do that. So now let's see how we can just now grab that message and rendered our desired UI. And also now we are going to use Reddit to perform all the stuff. So we have to go to the Reddit, and in the subreddit of anywhere, so let's say in the JavaScript subreddit, if I click anywhere and click on the post inside, then there should be a model, and inside that model I should see all the posts that I already have fetched or scrolled through. So now our task is to create a model and render that in any web page and then complete our main functionality. So now let's see how we can render UI in any web page using our content script. And I would like to create a folder called content, and I'm not going to use content.ts file because I am following the convention of the folder. So I'm going to put this particular file here, and it will be our root file. So I'm going to name it index.ts so that I can actually point this file as the entry file for the content script. And as I said that we are going to use React to render UI, so better we should rename it like content.tsx so that we can also play with React DOM or JSX. So now here that you can see that we are receiving message and we are checking with if else condition. Let's say we have several message, and if we just start with if else, it will not look well. So instead we can use switch statement. So that's our code is going to be when we are going to use switch statement. This particular event listener will have the callback that is kind of promised, so we have to use async, and because we are using async, so we also have to wrap the whole function with async. So that's why main will be async, and in the main function it's kind of same like the background we saw earlier, that we have the main function that actually run. The same thing happened with the content, and in that main function you will get a parameter which is kind of like the content script context. So that's mean with this you will get the whole context of the content. Let's say you are in a web page, and if you want that particular web page context, then you will get that with this particular argument. So the short form is CTX just. So now we can easily increase our condition. So if tomorrow another property comes, then we can just simply add that here, and we can handle our logic inside that particular scope. So that's how we should organize all the stuff. Now what I want to achieve is, in here we have the menu. So if I click on the post inside, then I should see a sort of model that will open or appear in the Reddit UI, and there should be post. And if I click on the comment, then there should be a model or UI that will appear on the Reddit, which will be kind of like comment. So how we can achieve that? And also we are using React, so we have to React and Tailwind CSS. That's mean we also have to inject CSS. So that's why we need the property called CSS injection mode /UI. Then it will actually inject all the CSS that we are going to import here. So I'm going to import the CSS from the popup, because in the popup, styler CSS is the Tailwind CSS entry point. So if I just import this part in our content file, then I should get all the Tailwind CSS support on content script. So that's why importing the main CSS file in your content script is important. And when we are going to render the UI in the page, any page. So we have to remember one thing: we can render UI with two ways. One is directly render into the DOM, render with shadow DOM. So the standard and best practice is to render with shadow DOM, not the real DOM, because if you just directly render any UI in the main DOM, let's say this is the main DOM for the Reddit, it has a lots of design, it has its own components and its design CSS. So if you directly render any UI in the real DOM of the web page, then your CSS and the web page CSS will be conflicted, and that will create UI related issue and some other functionality related issue. So you have to isolate your code and you have to make a copy of the DOM, and then you have to put or create a shadow DOM of that particular DOM, and you have to insert your component or your UI element into that DOM, and then you have to render that, which will make your component or your UI isolated and separated from the main DOM. And that is really important. If you don't do that, then you will face a lot of design issue and sometimes some functionality issue. So better we have to create a shadow root or shadow DOM where we will inject our UI. So let's create that. So let's just forget about this part for some times. So let's just comment this out and try to render a single UI in our web page so that you will understand how we are actually rendering the UI. So for rendering an UI with shadow root, we have to use a method called create shadow root UI, and you don't have to import it from anywhere. If you just directly invoke that function like create shadow root UI, then you can simply create kind of like a shadow root copy or like shadow root system that where you can just render the UI. So that's the method that we are going to use, and this method will took one argument first, which is the context of a particular web page, because we are getting the context from the main function. That means we can directly use that context to pass that shadow root, and this is the context that it will use to create a copy of that particular real DOMs. That means, let's say we have a web page called reddit.com and I want a copy from this particular web page, and when I will call this main method, I will get that particular window context, and later in the creating of the shadow root I can pass that particular window object, and it will use that context and it will create the copy. And now in the copy I can create element and then I can insert that element into that particular UI, and that's why I have to put some other property. You can see that this is the name for that particular shadow root. Right now it will be for post, and if I just give any name, it will look like kind of like this. So if we rendered any element in the HTML, then it will seems like this. That's going to be the element for the HTML. So that's why name is important, and position will be inline, then it will be placed directly inline in that particular shadow root or like the main DOM. This is onMount method that is going to help us to actually render the UI. And there is another one which is called onRemove, and this will help to remove the UI from the DOM. So this onMount method will have three property or maybe more. So if you just hover over, then you can see it has three property, like UI container, it's an HTML element, then we have shadow, then we have shadow host. So most of the time we're going to use the UI container, and if I use any of them, then I'm going to explain why I'm going to use that. And the UI container is kind of like, let's say we got the element like with the post, and because we have this element, so we have to insert sort of UI in there. So let's say kind of like this. So if we render UI like this, so we must need a container, and that's the container is kind of this one, the post. So this UI container will give us this, and now if we create some sort of element in HTML, now we can just simply return that HTML for mount. Then it will use the UI container to actually append that element inside of that particular container. So let's see the real example that how we're gonna render that. So the problem is we are creating the shadow root, but we are not mounting it. We're just returning the whole shadow root to our main function, but we must have to call this function, and there is a method inside that function which is called mount, because in the onMount we are actually rendering that. So we have to manually click or trigger that particular mount event so that we can render the UI. So for achieving that result, we have to create a, let's say, a variable where we can initialize this function. So that's the shadow root that we are initializing. using a variable, and then we have to use this variable UI, and then we will get a property or the method called mount, ui.mount. And so we have to use ui.mount method, and for using that case we also have to resolve that particular promise, because create shadow root UI, it actually return a promise. So we have to await that promise, and then we have to actually trigger that mount. So if I do that, then now we should see the result. But before that, let's understand another thing, which is like the onRemove method. So this onRemove method is kind of like a property of our create shadow root UI, where we must have to declare that, and also we will get the root, and this root is kind of like the root that we are returning from onMount, and we must have to unmount the event or like unmount the DOM when we have finished our UI. So it's really important because we are creating shadow root, so we must have to unmount it, or we must have to remove it from our main element or like main DOM. Otherwise, every time you open that particular UI or render the particular UI, it will create multiple shadow DOM, so which is not efficient. So you must have to use this function, and as well as call the root.unmount, and it will help you to actually remove that DOM element from the real DOM. So in summary, it will remove your shadow DOM from the real DOM. So before saving the file, let's just add some style here like this, so that we can identify that our UI is rendering or not. So we have to save that, and we have to refresh to see the UI is loading or not. And as you can see, we can't see the UI that I'm trying to load or render in the web page of the Reddit subreddit. So I'm getting error on the console. So it's saying that the content script content crashed on a startup error. Post is not a valid custom element name. It must be two-word and kebab case. And I believe this error is coming from the name we have declared here, the shadow root name. So it should not be with single word, it should be two words, and also it should be kebab case. So I could say it should be element, I think post element. So why it's not taking one word? Because there are too many HTML element with single word like img, like div. So that's why it is not allowing you to put single name shadow room. So make sure you put different or like multiple word to actually make a name for your shadow root. So let's save it and try to see. And as you can see, we can see a UI that's actually rendered in our Reddit or like the subreddit page. So anytime I refresh, the UI just actually appear. So that's happening because whenever we are running the Chrome extension, any website, let's say right now we are in the JavaScript subreddit, we should go to like Google. So even I go to Google, then you can see that it actually rendering that particular UI that we already added here. And it's also rendering the background color. You can see like background overlay. So if I just make sure this color becomes like red, then you can see the whole page becomes like red because I added the style. Like it should be position, visibility should be visible, and it should be the 100% of height. That's why it's taking the full height. So now if your Chrome extension feature is like hiding anything from the UI, then you can also apply this kind of stuff so that anybody use that extension, you can just hide any your desired section for any web page. So that's how you can render the UI using React. And let's just I think remove the red color. I think the background overlay was good. So now we have to grab those message. Like here we have post and we have comment. So if I just simply copy the whole thing as a function, let's say this particular things, if I just make it like as a function, and then if I just copy this function or like call this function here and I mount the UI, then I can see the whole UI. And because we have several signal, let's say we have post, we have comment. So every time we get message, then we have to create a div element, then we have to add that, we have to append that into the UI container, then we have to create the style for the shadow root, and then we have to create the React root, then we have to actually render or return the root, and also the functionality for the unmount. So we have to do all that stuff every time when we are trying to render any single UI, and which seems really boring task. And also we have to write repetitive code. So why not we can just simply make this particular section reusable. let's say we can bring the whole code, and that was the console log. We can remove that, and here we can create a function or something like that. So let's see, a function going to be like create UI, and this will be sort of like an async function because we are going to remove return like promise, so we have to use like this. So that's our function, and whenever we call, then we should get the whole instance of our React app. And also we can pass kind of like component as a parameter from the function, so that we can directly get access of that component here, and we can simply pass that component here. So right now just add like the ctx, which is the context. By the way, the context will come from the main function, so we must have to pass that here. And it is asking for type. Yeah, we are going to refactor the whole component or like whole function later, but for understanding purpose, let's just ignore the error. So we have to return the shadow root here. So that's what I'm doing here. So returning the shadow root, and I'm just going to create the UI with that function. So create UI function, it will take the ctx, and we're gonna use like await. And when we do so, it's giving the runtime error. So let's just make it like any for now. We're gonna give the type later. So let's just see that it worked or not. So if I refresh, then you can see the UI is still working. So if I just pass any argument, let's say message or something like that, so that's mean we should also get that message from here, message, and it will be like a string, and the message will be rendered in our hello world beside that. So like this, that's mean if I pass any message or any data in that function, then it should return here. Even though if I just pass any single component, then it should also return here like this. So we can do that as well as. So if I just render, then you can see this is the message. So let's just wrap our older code here, so that our older code which was receiving those signal from our background.js. So let's just copy our mounting code and add for post and another one for our comment, and you can see that it's giving us error. So I would make it like comment UI, and it will be comment UI.mount. And you can see that when we got the post signal, we are gonna call it like post, and when we get the comment signal, we're gonna pass the message like comment. That's mean we want to see different UI based on different signal or different message. So let's see we can find that or not. Now you can see that we are not getting the UI rendered initially anymore, because we just wrapped that UI with our messaging. That's mean whenever we got that message, we'll only render that UI, otherwise we'll not render it. And as you can see, we have to call the function that actually returning the shadow root, and then we have to call the UI.mount method to actually render the UI. So let's now just try to call post inside, and as you can see, the UI is showing, and also the message is like post. And as well as if I just refresh again, if I just click comment inside, then we can see the text is comment. That's mean every time we got some new message or something new event, then we can directly render different kind of UI based on our need. And every time we render UI, we must have to create the isolated version to render the React application inside of our main DOM. And also you can see that the Tailwind CSS is working because we injected our main CSS from the popup, which is using the Tailwind CSS, and we also use CSS injection mode from the UI. That means we can use all the Tailwind CSS UI in the React app. So now we have to make our create UI function kind of like a common wrapper function that always help us to create React UI. And if we pass any component like this, as we are doing for the data, then we can just render any kind of UI and the functionality. So that's what we are going to do next. So now let's create a folder called common, and in this folder I'm going to add another file called index.tsx, and this is the folder where I'm going to add all the common component inside of it, because for the content script we have several UI model or components which will require some common component. So that's why I need a common component folders. I can name it components or whatever, but I think common is good. So now what the plan is, I am going to took the whole portion of this particular code into that common/index.tsx file, and it will be kind of like a function that's gonna help us to create React application, or like it's gonna help us to create React components. That's mean it's gonna create React root app, or like the UI with React. So the function should be taken a component, and the component will be rendered with the wrapper of the React root. That's mean whatever component I will pass, it will render that component wrapped with React. So that kind of result I want to expecting from the function. So let's build the function. So that's the function that I was thinking to build. So I imported React DOM, and the toaster, and the function I named is create content element. This means that for our content descript, we need to create the element. So that's why I just name it like create content element, and this will accept the UI container that we are getting from here, like the UI wrapper or the container, whatever you say. And we have shadow container and the shadow, so we also have to pass them inside of that function. So, and for our case, I'm just using two. One is UI container and the shadow container, these two. So that's why I just took these props, and the type is HTML element, and then I passed a callback, and inside that callback it will require a root argument, which is React DOM.root. That means it is actually the root element from React. When we are gonna call the callback function, we are gonna pass the root as the argument, and it should return like a React node. So that's it. And for the whole function, it will return the whole root of the React app. That's why I just added React DOM.root. And what we are doing here is the same thing that we have done here. Like we created a div element, then we append that into our UI container, then we added the style into our shadow container .style, then we have created the React root app, and then we return the root app. So the same thing, I'm just copied from there and paste it here, and that's the same thing. Right now we're just simply returning the whole root from the function. And one thing we did as well, as which is the callback. As you can see in the react.streak mode, we also assigned the toaster as we did on our popup. So if you go to the popup main.tsx, then you can see we assigned the toaster component from React hot toast inside of react.streak mode. That's mean we can now use the toaster throughout the whole popup. The same thing I want to do here as well. As so I want to access the toaster, so that's why I need to add that toaster from React hot toast. So I added that, and for the callback, it will be come from when we are gonna use that, and as a callback argument we are passing the root that we have already created, so that we can access that root for unmount or mount or whatever we are necessarily need later. And this callback will actually return like React node. That's mean when we call this callback, we can simply return any sort of component, any sort of JSX there, and when we do so, then it will trigger from here and it will render that particular component. So let's say if I just try to use this one now, so let's just copy this one and try to remove the whole thing from here. So one thing you might notice that I didn't add on remove, and I didn't remove that from the root. In here you can see that it's just returning the root. That's mean we also have to handle the unmount event here on this function, so we have to handle the whole thing. So let's just remove this particular portion, because that's what we are actually refactoring here. So the whole portion of creating React element we are going to refactor. Here you can see I just imported that particular component that we have created. You can't say component, it's kind of like a function that return React root. And for using this one, we have to just call that function, and we have to pass what we got from onMount. So we got UI container, then we have to pass the shadow container, and in the callback we'll get the root, as well as we can return any sort of component, or you can say like any sort of HTML that will work like JSX. So for now I'm just returning like h1 element to check that the function is working perfectly or not. So let's just save it and try to check, and that's the Reddit page and the subreddit. So let's just click the post, and as you can see that I also added the message here, so I should see the message as well, as because I am passing the message from here. So let's just try it out. So if I just click, then you can see this hello world post, and let's just refresh and try to call like comment inside, and then you can see that hello world comment. So that's how cool it is. Now we can just simply call this function. We will pass this part to argument, and in the callback we can pass any component that will work like charm. So let's create a component here. Let's say header.tsx, and let's just make it like header, or let's just design a header. So that's the header component for our models, and as you can see, it will took 3 props. One is like title, count is going to be like how many posts that will shown in the UI. Then we have the on remove, and as you show earlier that when we open it, we can just only see the whole thing. Now how we can close the whole thing, like the design, or like how we can unmount the UI. So right now we have to just refresh every time to unmount the whole thing, and which is not good. We must need to be some sort of UI or handler that will handle to close the whole overlay or the UI from the page. So we need some sort of close icon or something like that to close the whole thing. And also we have to find out the logic how we can implement that to actually close the whole thing. So the functionality I am going to handle with the header component. So as you can see, we have a on remove function. So this function will be triggered from our header, and the header is simply just a h2 element where we are just putting the title, and the count will be actually show or display the post count or the comment count. And we have a button that is kind of like a close model button, and it will call the on remove function. So that's it. That's like a simple model, or like simple model header, or you can say simple header. So now we can just simply use that in our application here. So let's just add that, and we can just simply import that from our header, and it will took all the props. So we can say post, or we can just simply pass like message, because we know the message is kind of like the value that we get, and there will be a props called count. So let's just make it like 10, and then we have to pass on remove. So that's a function that will be triggered when we call that particular close icon. So now we need a function that's gonna actually close or remove the UI from the DOM. So as you can see, we already passed the callback, and inside the callback we will get the root. That's mean the React root. So when we have the root, then you can see in the on remove there is already on remove function that we are assigning in the create shadow root, which is root.unmount. So whenever you call this or root.unmount triggered, the UI will be dismissed from the main DOM. So that's mean we need to make a function here to get the access of the root and make it unmount, and that's the function that we need to actually work. So I'm gonna assign that function, and the function is here we are getting the root. And if you go to the common component, then you can see in the callback we are passing the root. This is the root we have created, and then we are rendering the whole root with React wrapper, and then in the callback we are just simply passing the whole root so that we can access the root in anywhere when we are just calling this create content element. And here we are accessing the root. Now we can just unmount on the root when we trigger this function, as well as we can just remove those style that we already added, which was like, you can see that we have visibility, visible, and all that stuff. We can also remove the whole style, but I prefer to just hide the visibility for now, because the root.unmount will unmount the whole component, so you don't have to worry about that. So if I save this now, then we have a function, common function, that is gonna trigger whenever we call it from the header, and it will call root.unmount, and it will hidden our UI. So let's see from the UI end. So if I click post inside, then that's the header. Right now it's not looking well, and if I try to click on that, then you can see the UI disappear. So that's the functionality I want to achieve. As well as if I just click on the comment inside, the same thing's happening. I have the comment which is coming from the message, and if I click, the UI actually disappear. So now you have understand how we can render element in the content script with React, as well as we can also remove that element from the real DOM. And for the summarize, I can say that you have to create shadow root UI, which is gonna help to render your UI in any web page, and then you have to pass the handler that's gonna handle to remove the UI from the DOM. So that's like the on remove function that's gonna help us to achieve the functionality to remove the whole thing from the UI. And the function we are using is kind of this one, create content element. Now we will just call this function, and we will pass any component, React component, inside of that callback to actually get our desired result. So now let's work with our main UI. So as I showed in the demo section, that we have two particular model. One is for the comment, another is for the post. So let's start with the post one. So I'm going to create another folder called post, and inside that folder I'm going to create another file called index.tsx, and inside that file is going to be the component for the post model. and we already have created the header, so we can just reuse this header in our post as well as the comment. So that's our post model. You can see we are using the header, and also we are using use from data. From where we are using it from our hooks that we are using in the pop-up. So this is the same hook that actually give us the API key and the endpoint from the Chrome storage. And why we are using it? Because in this model we are gonna call the API, so we need those information. First, I added two props for these components. One is post and another is on remove. That means I can perform the on remove functionality from the post, and the post is actually all the post list data, and you can see the data is kind of like this. So right now I'm just added that, but I didn't pass the data from the parent child. I'm gonna do that later, but for understanding, you can understand like this. So this is our dataset where we have the ID, we have the tag, we have kind of title and the description, score, and comment. So these are the fields that I use to render the UI, and I also added a state for managing the loading. So we're gonna make it functional when we're gonna call the API. And this is for the form data, and we are also logging the form data to check that our data is coming perfectly or not. So that's the data, and that's the UI where I just imported the header, and I just passed the title and the count as well as the on remove. So I can just simply say post data.count. That's mean this count will be from our post data. So it's going to be like post data.length. So that's it for the header, and it's gonna render our header. And I also added like background of dark as well as the width becomes 700 pixel. You saw that earlier my header was like too small and the UI was not good, so that's why I added the background color and the width, and also I make a card for shaping the whole model type UI. And we already have the black overlay for the model in here in the wrapper. That's mean whenever we call this create content element, it's gonna give us the wrapper black overlay of that model, so we don't have to worry about that. So that's why I just need to just simply render the UI that what I want to render. So that's like a simple card where we just rendered all the other stuff that we need. And this portion is where we are just rendering our post data, this array. So I just map through it, and there is a wrapper which is have some styles. You can see it's like a card type wrapper, and then I am showing the tag, then the title with h3 tag, then I have the description as well as the score and the comments. So let's try to use this post model. So copy this one, and I'm going to paste it in the create UI because we are using our create content element. Now we can just simply pass that particular component from here. So I'm going to pass from here, and it will be post, and we don't need title, we only need on remove and the post. So for the post, I'm going to pass like an empty array right now because we are just making or using a demo post data. Later we're gonna make it dynamic, so that's why right now it's like an empty post, and we are using the same function for handling the on remove. So let's try to check what's actually in the UI. So here if I just right click and then try to click on post inside, then you can see that's the exact UI that we are looking for. It has the title and the count and the close icon, and when I click that icon, it should disappear and it's gone. And even I click on the comment, it's also showing the same model because I am rendering the same thing, and the UI is kind of like the same. This is the tag, this is the title, and this is the description and the score and the comments. So the design is kind of like dark mode. I like the dark style, that's why I just designed the whole thing with dark design. So that's it. Now our task is to create the model for both, for one for post, another for our comment, as well as we need a search input field, some sort of like that, where we can just search, and we can also perform our API fetching logic there. So I'm gonna add that later. Now let's just create another component for our comment. Right now we are just showing the same component in the comment as well as. So let's create another one for comment. So we have to create a comment folder, and it's gonna contain the comment code. And mostly I will be only need one component, not multiple. So I think folder wise, like folder convention is good. If I need to add later more component, then I can just add there. So it's kind of will be the same but need some changes, let's say. So the change is I rename it to comment model, and also it will not only took the comment list but also require the post, because we also want to need the post data to actually perform better query from the LLM model. And also I imported the same use from data for actually getting those API credential, and then I added the loading as the post, and the same thing for the on remove and the other stuff. And as well as I have the data for comment data. You can see that we have the author name, we have the comment, and we have the score, that what is the score of that particular comment. So these are the fields. So later, right now, you can see that I'm just using any. So I'm gonna declare the type as well as I'm gonna complete the whole thing. So you're gonna see how I will do that. And for the UI, it's kind of like same as like the post, the same model. We can make it like a common wrapper, like for comment and post. You can see the same style we're using kind of here. But for now, I'm just keep as it is simple for one component. And the same UI like the header, and it's the title, comments, and the count is like comments counts. We can use like comment data dot length for better visibility, and the on remove function. And I'm gonna explain it later. You just need to understand this one first. That is like the comment data. I'm just mapping through the whole thing, like the data itself. This is kind of like the same card that I used in the post. So if I want, I can also refactor this part. For now, let's just make it simple to straightforward. And now you can see that we are using markdown. So as I showed you in the demo video, that we have to render markdown text as well as, because when in the comment we have a lot of comment, now we want to ask something for the comment and we want to get the result or the response. So the result or the response we will get from the LLM is kind of like in markdown format. So we have to render that markdown as well as. So that's why I'm using a package called React Markdown. So that's the package React Markdown, and this is really a good package to actually showcase your markdown text into a readable format, as we saw in GPT, Gemini, everywhere. So we have to install that first. So I'm going to use pnpm install React Markdown. Great. So now you can see in this React Markdown package, we have the main instance, and with the main instance is kind of like a component. Inside of that instance, you can pass any markdown string. So right now the markdown string is kind of like this. So I just hard coded the whole thing. Later we're gonna make it kind of dynamic, so that whenever we got the response, we are gonna render that particular markdown in here. So that's all about the comment model. And you can see that the loading state is also wrapped with the value, and we have the form data. We're gonna use all of them. So let's just try to render this one. And as you can see, we have two components now. So now I can just simply use kind of like a condition to render different component for each menu click. So because we have the message, so what we can do, we can make it like a kind of like a type. So the type going to be like post and the comment. So then I think that will be better to actually render multiple components. So let's make it. Yeah. So that's our code. So what I did, I added the type as a argument, and the type will be either post or comment. And based on that, we can just render different component. And I also use the switch statement as we did here. So whenever we got the signal like post or comment, we're just calling this create UI, and we are passing our type. And also we have to pass the type from here. Right now we are just passing a different value. You can see that it's like showing post, but the real value is something else. So we have to pass like this, and you can see the suggestion as well as. So now it's working. So we have to call this function, and then we have to pass the type and the CTX that we are getting from the main. And also I added the type for the CTX. So for getting the type, you have to just import it from WXT client. So this is the package where it actually exported this type. So we need this type to specify here so that we can use this CTX anywhere. And as you can see, this is the type I'm getting. Now I added the type for the switch case. So when we get the type called post, then we're gonna render the post, and it will render our post component. Same will go for the comment. So let's just import our comment model, and that's our model. And when we got the type called comment, then it will render the comment model, including the post data and the comments data and the on remove function. And we're gonna add those data dynamic in the next So let's just see the UI is working or not, and let's just remove the unnecessary input. So that's what it is, and in the default we're gonna returning like a simple string. So let's just see from the UI. So if I just right click and try to open the post inside, then you can see the post insights which was already implemented. Now let's look into the comment, and boom, you can see that all the comment list here. This is the comment, this is the author name, and the same things, all the list. It's showing our statics data, and this is the markdown that you can see that the markdown format. So the whole thing is not working here. You can see that I was trying to add like a H1 or H2 format, but it's not showing that thing. So let's just see what's happening here in the markdown. So I have to go to the comment, and we're passing kind of like any string. So I use backslash, so I have to use the string operator here. So this one, I think it will not work. So let's just try with this. So it's kind of like you need sort of a string, otherwise it's not gonna work. So that's why it's not working. So let's just make it one line. But when we are gonna make it dynamic, then it will be working, because we're gonna take the same response from the API and it will be in the right format. So let's just now see it's working or not. So comment inside, then you can see the tag from the markdown is gone, but the visualizations, we're not getting the H1, or we're not getting kind of like the list for what I actually added in the markdown. So yes, we are gonna complete the whole thing when we're gonna make it dynamic. So for now, let's just keep it simple. So that's how I can just simply render different UI based on our type. And also let's just see our form data is coming or not, because I already used the use from data hook that we used in the pop-up. So we have to make sure that it sync well together. So I have to open the inspect menu, and then I have to open the console, and then let's just try with the post inside, and then you can see we have the form data. It's just showing. So that's fine. That's mean we are getting the data. So let's open the pop-up and insert some of the data. So I'm going to insert this URL. So that's the URL, and let's just put any key, and let's just say you can see the toast. And now if I just try to clear the console, let's just zoom in a little bit and try to open post inside, then you can see it was give initially empty, but later it give the real data. That means it took some time to fetch the data from the storage. So because we are using use effect, so initially we got like empty data, then we fetch it from the storage, then we get the data, and then we are getting it in our post component. So now when we are gonna call the API, we can now just simply use that data to pass through the API, so that we can just call the valid API with the valid credential. And I already added the same thing in comment model as well as. So now if I just try to console that here, I can also do that. So that's it about the UI from our model, like the post and the comment. So now if I just make it little further, right now we're showing all the static data, but what if we will show all the posts, because we already need all this posts, as you show my demo section of this video, where we click on this post menu and we saw all the posts that we already fetch. So let's say if I fetch 200 posts or 20 posts, then I should see all the 20 posts in this list. That means we have to fetch, or we have to scrap those posts from the real DOM, and then we have to make the data set, and then we have to render those posts into this particular here. And as you saw that our component is already built with handling the whole thing. We are passing the post comments. So in this post component, we are passing the post. That means we have to create the type. We have to create the function that's actually gonna scrap or fetch the whole data from the real DOM, and then it's gonna create the list. So let's create the function. So I'm going to create a folder here called script. And why it's called script? Because these are related to script. So when we are going to add or fetch all the posts from the real DOM, so it's kind of like a script that actually work like to fetch all the data from the real DOM. So that's why I just going to create a folder called script. And inside that folder, we have to create a file called scrap.ts. And this scrap.ts file will actually contain all the related code that's going to help us to scrap the whole page and make the array for our data set. So before that, let's just create the type. So we need a type interface for post. So I just name it iPost. That means interface post, and it will have title, link, comments, tag, description, score, ID as the same we are using in our post component. You can see in the post component we have the post data. Now we can simply use this particular type here, and as well as it will go for the same for the comment. We need author, comment, permalink. So we need link as well as, because when we will show the UI from our list, we also want to see the post, because otherwise it will not make sense. We can also see all these posts here, but when we click, it will take us to the post details. That's mean we also need kind of same behavior, so that when we filter all the posts and we have to an option to actually click on that particular post to open that in new tab, or maybe this current tab. I think new tab is better. The same thing will also happen with the comment. So when we will see all the comment list, so we also have to go to the details of that comment. So when we click on that particular comment link, then it will take us to that particular reply or the comment. So that's why we need the type for link, and we're gonna use that frequently. So that's our type for both of the model. And now let's just create those functions that's gonna help us to scrap. So I'm going to create a function that's going to help to fetch or retrieve all the posts. That's mean whenever I click on this particular post inside, it's gonna fetch or scrap all this post data, and it's gonna create the data set like this. So it kind of like iPost array. That means I need a data set of this object of array. So that's our function. I will name it extract Reddit post from DOM. So that's our function name. And this is a lots of logic, but first let's understand how we can actually retrieve all those posts. So if you inspect and open the DevTools, and if you just click on this particular icon, which is for selecting or monitoring, so click on that and it will become like blue. And then when you hover over any of the element of like any of the posts, let's say for this one, if I just click this one, then you can see we have the tag in the real DOM. So it's like an A tag, which actually helping. When you click on that, it actually navigate to the details. So I think we need to find the wrapper of this particular post. We have to find all the wrapper. That's mean wrapper means the main component that's actually holding the whole component. So if I just go a little bit up, then this one is the main component. So it's called subreddit post. So if I just go over here, you can see that's the subreddit post. And if I go a little bit up, then you can see there is a tag called article. So I believe this is the main wrapper of the post. So if I just hover over on this thing, you can see the whole hover also appearing here. So when I hover, this article is showing this. When I hover this article, showing this post, you can see. So that's mean if I just took this element, like copy this HTML element and then paste it anywhere, then I will see the same or like the whole HTML or the all of its content inside of this thing. That's mean if I just say in the console, like let's say document dot query selector all, not query selector, we need the method like all. It's like the simple vanilla JS method. So we have to call the article tag. So what I'm gonna do is just name it article, and as you can see it's showing us 75 nodes, and all of it's actually the post. So if I just click like this, so these are all the posts. So I can also go one by one, so that you can see these are all the node that it has. So if I just say document.query selector all article, then I will get all the article. That's mean all the post HTML. So that's what actually I did on the function. And also you can see that in the article, so if I just hover over again, in the article we have another wrapper which is called subreddit post. You can see that's another wrapper element. So we have article is the wrapper element to identify the post. Then we have subreddit dash post. That's another component or like element that actually holding the whole component data set. Like you can see that the score here, as well as that you can see the score attribute which is holding the score. You can see the author name, you can see the icon, you can see the subreddit name, a lot of stuff you can find here. So that's really important to identify our main selector, and which is subreddit. So we have to somehow get all the list of subreddit from the DOM. So if I just simply say article. Instead we can just say, what was it? I think it was subreddit post. So we have to copy this name and then we have to paste that here. And if we just enter, then you can see we are getting all the sublist as well as the article component, and it's also giving us 75. You can see 75 node here. The same was we got like in the article 75 node. That's mean we are targeting our main post. And subreddit post is kind of sh reddit post is the tag that we need to target, and when we will target this particular element, we'll get the whole post data as well as all the stuff. So with this knowledge, you can actually play with any website, web page where they have the element, where they have some dedicated tag. So we can just simply play around with all of them. So the same thing I just applied here. So this function, you can see document.querySelectorAll. We're just selecting all the sh reddit post element in the post element variable. And now we are just creating a variable with our type. So here I'm going to make the data set and I'm going to push those data into this particular array. So here you can see we already got 75 post list. So what I can do now, I can just loop through all the node, and when we loop through, we can just retrieve all those information. So post elements is all the node, and we are just using for each, and we will get each node and also the key for the indexing. We can use this key for the ID, and I have created variable for title, then link, then if I need the full link, I have created that, comment count, tag element, and then the tag as well as the description and the score and all that stuff. And then I just created a object and I push that object into the post data like this particular array, so that we can get our desired array with the information. And then later I'm just returning the whole post data array. That's mean this function will return a data set of our post. And here you can see in the title what we are doing, we are getting the node. So post element dot get attribute post titles. That's mean when we are going to call this particular method with the title, then we will get the title. So let me show you the in real example. So here we get our you can see, let's just create the older one, so make it a variable. So I'm gonna zoom it a little bit more so that you can understand what's happening. So I just created a variable here like const value. So that's going to be all the node, and if I just try to console, then you can see there are 75 nodes. So and if I try to access the 0 number of index, then you can see that's the node. And here now I can get all of its attributes. So for getting all of its attribute, we need a method called get attribute, and get attribute actually give all the attribute of that particular element. And I just added like post title. So you might ask like where the post title you find. So if you click on the title and hover over, and if you go to the subreddit sh reddit post element, and there are lots of, you can see, attribute, and we have to find the attribute called post title. How we can find that? We have to maybe search that post title. You can see that this is the attribute here. But now you might ask how you find that. So what I did a small trick here. I simply copy the whole element and I go to Gemini or GPT, whatever you are using. So go there and give the particular string to that LLM model to retrieve all of your data. Like how you can retrieve all those data, just ask that in the prompt, like give that particular let's just, I'm giving this here, this is the element. Okay, I have to maybe close this one. So let's see, I can visit Gemini from here or not. So it will ask you to sign up because it's like a fresh Chrome that's actually opening from the WXT client. So this is where what I did, I just added, let's just zoom in, I just added the quotation, and then I added these, and then I asked like how I can find all the information from this element. Give me JavaScript function to fetch all the information. So kind of like this kind of prompt, when you do so, then you can see it will give you a code and which will actually retrieve all the information that you need. You can see that how many information you can retrieve from the whole HTML. So the post data, I can create something valuable as well as all it will give. That's like the string that we provided, and that's the function extract post data, and it gives us all the element. And also you can see that it's using get attribute to get all this information. Sometimes get attribute, sometimes it's using something else, but mostly it is using the get attribute method to actually getting all the data, because in the Reddit sh Reddit post element, it has already a lot of attribute which has the value, and all the value is using inside all of its children element. So it is really important to identify the root or the wrapper element, and then later you can just grab that element code. Let's say if you just select the article, you can do that as well as just copy this particular element from the DOM like this, copy element, and then ask to Gemini or GPT to actually give me the function or the code how I can retrieve all the information from here. And of course, before getting the code, you must need to understand why and how all the code actually has been used. So you can see that here it's also parsing the HTML first, then it's actually selecting all the sh Reddit post with the query selector, then it's checking the null and all that stuff. So the same thing we actually did kind of here. I just give the sh Reddit post element as the HTML, and then I asked to give me the code for retrieving some of the information I have mentioned here. So it gives like something like this. So I just grab that code like post element dot get attribute post title link, then I just use that link to make a full link, because the link is not giving me the full link, so I have to make that manually, like https www.reddit.com/ the link that I got from attribute. It's actually the post link. And then I was also fetching or like scraping the comment count, that how many comment it has, and the tag element. So for the tag element, we are also using post element.query selector, because if I just took you in the tag, so let's just find a post that has tag. So I think there are no posts. I think, yeah, this one. So you can see that we have tag, and the tag also using sh Reddit post flare. So that's another element that's using inside of the article or the sh Reddit post. That means we have to find this all element from our sh Reddit element to identify all the tag. So that's why it is actually querying from post element.query selector with the name you saw, and also specifically the a tag and the span tag and inside of that. So it's actually retrieving the tag by this code. And then if I just checked some other condition, if the tag have the text content, then we're gonna trimming it. If we don't have, then we're just making it null so that we can handle it a better way. And then for the description, we are also fetching it with the same way. So it's just give the code from Gemini. You can just ask Gemini to explain what's happening. But as from now I can see it's actually looking for data post click location text dash body is kind of the pointer that's actually helped to retrieve the description element. And then later I just check is there are any text content on there, then we should trim that, otherwise there will be null. And for the score, we will get the score in the attribute, so that's easy. We don't have to take anything. So for the tag and the description, we have to additionally fetch or additionally query inside of the post sh Reddit post element, because it have some more nested element to actually render those things. So when we will get the title and the full link, then we are gonna make the data for us. So the post data, and the post data, I'm gonna push it to our main array. So now whenever we call this particular function, so let's just call this and make our post section dynamic. So here you can see that we're getting the post, and so I can call that extraction function here, but as you showed that we also need a post here. So what I can do, I can simply call that particular function here before we got the signal. We can call that, or maybe when we got the signal, we can simply call that function to actually fetch the post. So we can call that function here, as well as I think better we should call that function inside of this function under the onRemove function. So let's just call it like post, and we're gonna call it like this. So whenever we call, then it will trigger here and it will try to fetch the post and it will make the data set, then it will give us the post. And because we are getting the post here, now we can just pass the post simply on our post model. And here inside the post model we have to declare the type, so it will be like I post and it will come from our script / scrap file from here. And then now we can just simply remove our static data set and we can just make our whole thing as dynamic. So it's going to be like post.length and it will be also like post.map, and I post will be array. Right now it's showing like object, so it will be an array. So that's it for the post. And right now the runtime error gone, so now we should see all the dynamic data from the list. So we are passing the post here as well as, so let's just see from the UI. So let's just close this and try to open post inside, and then you can see we have 28 posts and all of the post is kind of like this. You can see it's like the same title. So let's find our match with our first post. So the first post is kind of like in defense of TypeScript enums, you are probably using it wrong. So let's just see, is that our first post or not? Yeah, that's the first post from we get what we get. Yeah, so if I just fetch more posts like this, it's almost 3 days ago, so let's just fetch more like this and let's fetch more as well as more and more. So I think that's enough. It's almost 10 days ago, so if I just go up, then I should get a lot of posts. So let's see how many posts I have fetched. It's almost 153 posts I have fetched. So all the posts, you can see the list is going on, and all of his posts you can see the data. So we have the score, we have the comments. Sometimes we don't have the description because it attached with image, so I'm not gonna show the image here. I just need the description and the title and the tag and the score and the comments. So I think that's all the data I need. And if you need the extension to be more accurate, to be more specific, let's say if you want to play with image, then you also need the image. Then you have to send that image to the LLM model to actually teach them that what you want to actually retrieve. So there are a lot of scenario you can also do that, but for now as a general version or the MVP version, we can just use all the text to actually send back to the Gemini or GPT to actually give us the result. So this is all the post. So now what do I need for the same thing, kind of the comment, because we already have like a lot of comments. You can see that we have a lots of comment. We also want to show, when we click on the comment, we also want to show all the comment list here. So let's add the functionality as well as, but before that let's just see how we can grab those comments. So what is the element for rendering those comments? If I just hover over in a particular comment, then you can see the name is kind of like shreddit comment. You can see shreddit -comment. So that's the element that will help us to retrieve all the comment information. And for the comment score, we have another one which is called shreddit comment action, and in this particular element we have the score or vote attribute. You can see that score attribute which is showing 1. So this is also help us to retrieve the score of the vote count from the UI. So let's just add this function as well as. So right now I have, if I go to the scrap.ts, we have extract Reddit post from DOM. So now I need another function that's gonna help to actually extract Reddit comments from DOM. So that's our function, extract Reddit comments from DOM, and it will return like I comment array type. That's mean we are going to return this kind of array of object. So that's why I just added the type. And let's just see the implementation. So it's kind of the same as we did on the post. You can see that in the post where query selector all shreddit post. So now for the comment we have to use like shreddit comment, and this gonna give all the comments in a list, and we are storing it in the comments elements variable. And I also added a variable for using or like making our data set from looping through the main element list or the node list. And as you can see, the same thing I did, I took the HTML element and I sent that to GPT or Gemini to actually give me the code, like how I can get those information. You can also ask like give me this information like title, vote or something like that, so it will give you more or less code. So that was like really fun. So the same thing, it's actually retrieving the author. It can easily get the author name from the attribute, get attribute.author, then permalink, then we have the ID. So it's kind of like the ID for actually the content or the description of that comment. So it's kind of it was kind of trickier because if I just show you a single comment so you can understand what's happening. So if you click on that, then you will see that in the p tag we have that particular comment, but in the div it was have the id with like t1, then a random id number or like string, and then post rt json content. So this is kind of like dynamic value that's displaying every time for every single comment, and it is really hard to actually grab that particular data directly from the DOM. So that's why we have to apply the trick as well. As so you can just do the thing by prompting with Gemini. Let's say you are going to fetch the description. You can give a bunch of elements and ask Gemini to, you can see that we have some dynamic id or the content is dynamic, so we need a function that's gonna help to retrieve those data dynamically. So what it did, actually it checked that what is the id or something like that, is there anything available in the DOM which is actually helping to make this kind of id, and it found that in the sh reddit comment element we have a property called thing id equal to t1 mk t1, kind of like that. So that's the id from in the div element that we are using here. That's mean if we just that id fast, then we can just simply make that particular id by ourselves. So we just need post rt json content manually, and this particular id we need to fetch it from our wrapper attribute. So that's what we did here. I just fetch that id, that's called thing id, and we can just get it from the attribute, and then I used like get element by id. I am just putting this id here, and then I added like post rt json content, that's the same string as we saw, and with that case we will get the id, and with this id we can simply get the main element like the div, like this one. So this particular div, and inside the div we have the content of that particular comment. So that's how I just fetch the whole component, and here you can see if we have the div, then we are retrieving the inner text for the comment text, and then I just added a object which actually is storing the author, then the link and the comment text from our dynamically selection, and then the link, and the for the id we're just using the thing id, or if we don't have that then we are using the key that we are using from the for each, and then we have that score as like as we did for our post function. And I also handle a edge case if we don't have any data. Let's say in the future if Reddit replace or change the element name or something like that, then we can also debug that by adding a debugger here. So that's why I just added a debugger, so whenever our feature not working well, then I can see that the function is broken or not, because it's kind of like a UI related thing, so there is a high chance it will be changed frequently, so we have to update the code as well as. So that's our function for fetching or scraping or selecting all the comments from the DOM. So let's try to use that. So for using that, we also have to do the same thing. Here we are fetching the post, but now in the comment we can also fetch our comment as well as. So what I'm going to do is call the same function, so it will be something like this, and we have to import that, and we have to make it like comments, and then we can just simply pass the comments, as well as whenever our function create UI will be called, it will also try to fetch the post as well as, and we also need the post. So what we can do is simply pass the post, but we need to pass the first post. So I'm going to explain that a little bit later. That's what's happening here, like how I'm getting the post. Okay, let's just explain it right now. So whenever we call or go to a details of a particular post, let's say I want to go to this particular post details. So whenever I click, then you can see that this is the post, and this is the same post with the same element that we found on our post list. So you will get the same sort of element, so like subreddit post. That's mean whenever we come and try to click on the comment inside, then we can also fetch this post data, and that's what we need. So whenever we call the API, like the LLM API, we're gonna fetch those post data as well as all the comments, then we are gonna give both data to the API to actually retrieve better result. So that was the purpose, and that's mean whenever this function will call, we can just fetch the post every time, and that's why it's become really easy. And sometimes this function will not give error, because every time whenever we go this particular page, we already have the post, and that's why I added post 0, so that we just need that first post information to pass in our comment model. And for the comments, yeah, we already need all the list of information. So whenever I go to the comment model and we have those already used, so I just have to declare the type. So it will be I post, and of course it will be array, or I think it will be kind of object, yeah, because we are passing the object from there, not the array. But for the comment, we are passing the whole array, so we need to make it like I comment, something like this, array. And we have to remove the custom data, so let's just remove it, and let's just make it kind of dynamic to see what's going on. And also the length will be changed, and this data set will be also changed. So, and if you want to console the post, we can also do that as well as. So let's just console it, and I want to console like the post, not the form data. So let's just make it something like this, and that's our dynamically bind. So let's just see what's happening. So we must have to go to in the details of any page, like any posts, and then if I just click post inside, then you can see there are only one post, because I said already the same post is binding here as well as the element. So that's why we only see the one post when we click on the post inside. And if I click now on the comment inside, then you can see that we have 10 comments, and all of each comment is kind of like this. So you can see all of its comment like this. And if there are more reply, we also have to open those reply. You can see that we have 2 reply here, we have 2 more reply, 1 more reply as well as. So all the reply we need to open. You can also not open that, you can do that dynamically, but I want to make something like more simple and straightforward. That's why I added that for manually handling. So if I now click on the comment inside, then you can see that comment count increased, because the reply was in the accordion. So when the accordion open, the more element actually open, and then when we scrap, we get more data. So that's kind of like a simple thing. So if I just click now, right now nothing happening. So we also have to handle the click event, and because we are getting the URL, so whenever we click on that particular comment, we should take to that particular comment URL. So right now let's just make that things happen, as well as for the post. So when I go to the post list and try to fetch all the posts, and I should click and it should open the post. So let's just make it working. So for that case, we have to go to our post list, and here we have to add the handler. So let's just make a function. So I think this kind of function, and it will took the post, and the post will be kind of like I post, the type we already declared. And as you can see, the benefit of reusable type. So now we can get, if there are post.link, then we're going to open it with a new tab. And that's why you can just use simply window.open and post.link we're passing, and we need a blank window, and we need this attribute there. So when you do so, now we just have to use this particular function in our card click. So I'm going to add that handler here, because we already have the ID, post ID. If this is the wrapper of that card, so I can just simply use the on click, and I can just simply call this function, and I can pass the post that we are getting from throughout the map. So when I save that, it's gonna work for the post. Let's just add for the comment as well as. So for our comment, that's going to be the function, and that's going to be the on click method. So for the function is the kind of same, we will get the comment object, and it will be I comment. And if there are a field called permalink, because we already added the link in this property, so we should get that here. So we'll get that permalink here. If we have the link, then we are going to open that particular link there, and let's just find out our wrapper. So this is where we just added that ID, and then here I can just simply add that particular on click methods to actually perform our functionality. So let's just check, and let's just try to fetch some post. I think that's enough, so I should get like 10 to 20 posts. And let's just click on the post text inside, and you can see we have 78 posts. And now if I want to go any post details, so I just have to click. So let's just find a post that have lots of comments. So I think this one, it's have 14 comments. So let's just click on that, and you can see it's working fine. And as well as it has some sort of comments. So let's just try to open our comments inside to see that it has 10 comments showing, because some of the comments are hiding inside of this particular section. So we have to unwrap that. When we do so, then we will get more comment. You can see we will get more comment. So we have to unwrap those reply section. So now if I just click and the comment section, you can see that we have 12. And if I just click on a particular comment, let's say this one, then I should open that comment as well as. So you can see the post, then you can see the comment. If there are multiple reply, then you will also find them here. So that's how we can simply list down all the comment as our desired UI, as well as we can also play the same thing with the post for getting all the post informations easily. And now we can just add the search input UI to actually perform our prompting logic to actually work with the AI to generate response, generate all of our data. So that's how cool it is. And I believe you are enjoying this video by watching all the steps, how I am doing it, how I am implementing it, and also give me some feedback about my explanation, that is my explanation is well or not, if I need to explain more details, or like you might ask like why I'm not showing you the styling explanation, because I don't think that's like productive. There are lots of logic we write above the designing. So I think showing you all the design by writing those code is not going to be productive. You can design it by your own, or if I share my code, you can just get that code. But for understanding the logic is really the important part. So that's why I am showing the main thing, like all the logic, how all the things work. Like if you just was the previous section, kind of like the common function that I have created to actually manage the rendering things, then I think you will understand the whole thing and you can easily implement any Chrome extension and you will not get confused anytime. And also when I just try to implement these things by myself, it was take some time to actually understand how I can just implement or make it like common things so that I can render any React component. So that's why understanding the main logic of the core part is really important, and that's what I always try to make thing out on my every video. I don't show you all the smallest step. I would show the main logic as well as the step-by-step process, and I will also show you that how you can generate the UI. So UI part, you can just generate it nowadays on the ChatGPT, or if you know HTML CSS, you can just design by yourself. And if you want like video like in the HTML CSS or Tailwind CSS, some sort of AI related stuff, then let's just comment down these videos so that I can just make that into my to-do list as well as. So that's the part for now. So now I have to do the next task, which is we need a search input box, and we need the functionality, how we can handle the prompting, how we can send all this data to the API, and how we can get the response, how we can show all those data as well as. So that's going to our next step. So let's create a search component and make it common and use it in our post model and comment model. And I'm going to create the search component inside of the common directory. So here is our search component. I'm using search icon from Lucid React and some sort of type like JSX type from React. And this search component will be returned like a JSX element. So that's why you can see the return type. And in this search component, I will accept a function, and this function will take the search query, kind of like a string, and it will return nothing. So that's the function. That means it's kind of like a handle search function that we can use that in the parent component. So that's why we need that. And we have a state that will handle the state of the search input, and then we have the button click handler that's going to handle when we click on the search button. So we have a search input, we have a search button, and when we click on the search button, it should give the text that we type in the input field, and it should handle or call or trigger the handle search function that we already declare when we call the search component. And if I talk about the component, then it's pretty simple. We have the border, and we have like full width and a input field with the text type, and the value will come from the state value that we are created the state. And in the onChange, we are actually calling this set search query method to actually update the value, real-time value. And we have on key down event. That means if we want to press enter on the input field, we want to also perform the submission. That's why I added the on key down event, and I grab the enter event and click or trigger the function that I have created for handling the search. So that's the same. We'll actually call in the button as well as. So the button has the search icon and the text search. So let's just try to use this search component in our post as well as in our comment. And because we already have the header, so I think it is better if we place the search component below the header. So that's going to be the search component, and it will record and handle search function. So right now I'm just making a empty function And that's it. Let's just save it. It's for the post model, and let's just add the same thing for our comment model as well as below the header component. So that's the search component, and that's it. Now let's just see from the UI. So if I just right click and open the post inside, then you can see that's the search input and that's the button. So if I just click, nothing happen. If I just type, nothing happen, and the on key down event should work when we are gonna handle the input. And let's see it's also working on the comment inside or not. Yes, the search input is also here, we can see, and you can see that I can't see all the comments because right now I am in the post list. So for getting all the comments informations, then I have to navigate to any particular course, any particular post details to fetch all the comments and then render them. So if I just come here and try to open the comment inside, then now you can see we have 30 comment and all of it's here, and here we can show the response from the markdown output from the LLM. So that's it. Now let's add the main functionality. So for doing our main functionality, we have to add the function in like comment model and the post model. So let's start with the post model. So we need a handler that's gonna handle the search on change, because we already have the handle search. So whenever we click on submit button or whenever we press enter, then this function will be invoked. So we need a function that's gonna handle all of that. So here is the function called handle search, which is going to handle our prompting, or like whenever we type anything in my input field and if we search for it or ask for it, then this function will be triggered. And I also declared a state called Gemini response, because my initial target was to use Gemini API to actually build a project, and that's why I just added like Gemini response. Later if I added GPT or any sort of LLM, then maybe there will be multiple state or maybe there will be object or something like that. For understanding purpose, I just added the state name called like Gemini response. So initially this function will be triggered when we will actually click on the search button, or maybe when we press the enter key from the keyboard. So that's why we have to add that handle search here, and then it will trigger. And the first line, it will make our loading state become true. Initially it was false. Now you can see that we are using that state, and then we actually cleared our older data. So let's say if there are any data in this state, then we are going to make it empty, because this should be our post list. So the basic plan is when we open this and when we type something on here, that means we have the query text and then we have all the posts. So what my plan is, I will send this prompt like the query text as well as the list of all the data like what we generated or scrapped from the web page. So I will make a prompt and then I will call the Gemini endpoint, LLM endpoint, with all this data as a payload, and I'm gonna ask to give me the response with the JSON format or whatever that's actually good for me to show all the list. That's mean let's say if I just go for like give me TypeScript related post, then the prompt will be give me TypeScript related post and all the data will be like 28 posts. And then I will prepare the payload, and then when I click the search, then it will call the API and it will give the response in markdown format. Then we have to take that markdown format and we have to retrieve all the JSON list, because I also need the list of those data. Why? Because if it gives the response, then I will not know that which are the posts actually that related to my prompt. So I must need the list as well as. So I'm gonna give the list of the data object like array of object to the payload, and also in return in the response of the markdown I also expecting to give me the JSON or like the list of the post, and then in the response it will give you in markdown format. Then we have to retrieve or extract that JSON list from that markdown format. So we need another function to actually handle that things. So that's what I actually handled in the handle search function. So first I have created the URL. The URL will come from our from data. So as you can see, that's the hook that was created when we create the pop-up. So this hook work on the pop-up, and now this is also working in our content script. And whenever we call this hook, you saw earlier that it console log the data from the Chrome storage. And here with this from data, I can create the URL. And as you can see in our form pop-up, we have the endpoint, which is the URL, and the key, which is the key. So the URL will be kind of like from data endpoint, then key, then from data.api key. So if you used Google AI Studio, it's aistudio.google.com API key. If you go to get API key, then you will come to this page, and here you can create new API key. You can also find your existing API key by clicking that API key. And if you look into the upper section, then you can see there is a URL like this, and that's the URL we need to actually request the API. And it's not only the URL, but also it includes the key. You can see that key equal to Gemini API key. That's mean if we just took the whole thing, and if we add the key, and then if we add the data in as a body, as a payload, then we can just send that request to the Gemini AI Studio API, and it will give us the response back. That's mean the key and the URL is important here. So that's why whenever we add any key here and save it, that it will store in the Chrome storage, and later when we open our post inside model and ask something and go for search, then we can retrieve those information and call the API. So that's why this is the API I have built. And now the thing is we have to build a payload, and the payload is kind of like an object, and inside that object it will record like a content property. If you see here that it will give you a simple example, which is it's an object, and then of course you have to be like, it could be like the JSON. So it's the contents property, and the content property will contain a list, and in the list there will be an object of parts property, and then this object will took another list which has the text, and in the text that's your prompt. You can see explain how AI works. That's the prompt. So I just grab that format and I paste that the same format, and in the parts I have the array, and in the array I have the object, and in the object I have the property called X. I have the property called text, and the text here, that's our prompt. So you can see the prompt is, this is the prompt where I just mentioned the search query, which I will get from when I just declare this function. So whenever I declare this function here, so whenever that triggered, I will get the search query. Now I can add that in my prompt. So this is the prompt search query. This is the dataset of post in JS array. So I just added the post list. So I get the post list from its props. That means I can get the list. So the list that I am showing or displaying here, like mapping through. So that's our post. I am just adding the post with JSON.stringify to make it like a JSON type things from the string so that it understands. So I have two input. One is the prompt and the second one is the post list, and I'm just giving it like this. So this is the prompt and this is the dataset of post in the JS array. And now based on this post dataset and the prompt, give me all the related posts match with that prompt asked. Use description, title, tag, score, comments for matching most relevant post. Give me the list of posts with the same format as I have given you. Don't give me any extra text even if you fail to find any post. Just give me an empty array if not match found, and if found, give me the list of the post with the same data format. So the summary is I am giving the prompt and the data set like the post list, and I'm asking to give me or like to use the prompt to filter or find the related data from the array and give me return back the array. And if you don't find any match, then just don't give me anything. Just give me an empty array and not any extra text. So you have to specifically mention in the prompt that what you are asking and what you need. If you say, okay, if you just remove this line, like don't give me any extra text, then it will give you, let's say, some initial and a final text from the response, which I wasn't expecting. So I need to specifically mention in the prompt that I need this, and you should give me this. And most of the time, like 90% of the time, it gives you the desired or expected result. Sometimes it might cause issue. Then you also have to handle that from your end, because we are relying on the LLM to give the response of our array. Let's say if the array is in our code, we can manipulate it, we can get our desired result. but the problem is we're sending the array to an LLM. We're sending the array to a LLM model, and we're expecting to give us like different sort of array, or like the same array but filtered data set, so which is sometimes will not be accurate. So we have to handle that as well. As but for now I'm just I tried with several times, but it gives me all the list, so I don't have to handle that here. So that's our payload and that's our URL. So we have to call the API because we have the URL, so we have to call the URL with this payload so that we can get the response. And when we get that response, we are gonna set that response as like we did here, like we got the post dataset like a list. So that's mean we also have to set that list here. But the thing is, when we call the API, it doesn't give you the list in direct JavaScript format or the JSON format. It actually give you a markdown format text, and it's kind of a string. So you have to retrieve your JSON or like the array from that particular string. That's mean we need kind of a converter or kind of a compiler that actually compile the text and give us the desired JSON array that we are looking for. But before that, let's just install Axios to actually fetching or calling API. So we have to use Axios for actually API calling. It has installed, so then you can see we have to import the Axios, and now in the axios.post is gonna do the post request, and we have the URL here as well as the payload, and in the third parameter we have to pass the headers with content type application.json. So if you go to the AI Studio, then it will refer you to pass content type application/JSON. So that's important. You have to pass that with the payload. So that's the API request, and we are gonna, because it's the API request, is gonna return promise. We have to await that promise, and here we're gonna get the response. And the cool thing is, when you get that response, you will not directly get the data. Like in the response or response.data, we usually get that exact data from the response. But because we are using the model from Google, so they have some other property as well as. So the property is like response.data.candidate. So there is an array of candidates, and in that candidates array, there are the first index we will get that particular object, and inside that object we have a property called content, and inside that content we have another property called parts, and the parts is kind of like an array, is the same we saw in the kind of like this here. So basically it's kind of like the same type of payload. That's mean if you see content.parts 0 text, that's mean in the contents array we have the parts property, and in that parts property we have the array, and in the array first item we are gonna get the text, and the text is actual response from Gemini. So you have to dig into this particular nested property so that you can find that where your data is. So sometimes it will be changed. So I'm using Gemini Flash 2.0, so maybe in the later future it's gonna change or whatever that should be implemented. So you have to make sure that you added that response from the latest property. So that's exactly the response is. And now we got the data or like the response in a string format. So we have to extract our array from that particular string format, because you know that whenever we call API like any LLM model API, then we get the response in markdown format. And if I got that response in markdown format, I can't show that format, or like I can't show the list here, because this UI required a JavaScript array. So we must need a JavaScript array to show all the data with the same format, because if I just change the format of my post data, then it's not gonna work. So I have to maintain the format as well as, and I also have to show that. So that's why I need a function that's actually gonna do our work. So what I did, let's just create a function in our script /scrap.ts file. As I said earlier, this file will be contain all the script related code that we are gonna reuse everywhere. So that's our function. It's called extract JSON list from markdown, and it will require a argument called markdown text, and it's a string, and then it should return iPost. Then you can see that that's the return formation that I want to return it from this particular function. So let's say if I just go here, so this one function is start with a regular expression. So this expression will find all the text related to JSON or JavaScript code snippets. Let's say, for example, I have a, let's say I just make a string like this, and this is our markdown. So it's like this is a extract JSON data, and we have this one, and then we have a quotation, we have a code section. So the code section actually show like this. So we have code like JSON, and then it actually close like this, and inside of that we have that particular JSON. That's mean it actually give the data format like this. So if I just add like name, so it's like Hassan, so that's how it actually give the data. For the array, it also give you like this. So sometimes it will be like this, and sometimes it will become like JavaScript if you ask JavaScript string, if you ask JavaScript array. If you ask like the array in maybe another language like Python, then it might be changed to Python. So mainly I will get like JavaScript and JSON. That's why what I did, I added a regular expression which will help to retrieve the text from this particular quotation. So you can see this is like 3 which will start the code section, and it will end with again the same pattern. So we will get the data inside of the JavaScript code section, or it could be like JSON code section. So that's why this JSON array regular expression is, so it's actually retrieving this particular array from the whole markdown text. That means any text you give on the markdown, it will not care. It will only care the text that use the pattern like this or maybe this, and of course that should be closed with the same pattern like this. So that's the regular expression which I'm going to match with my markdown text. And let's just remove this, and I have created a JSON list which will be kind of like iPost list, where I'm gonna retrieve the text and put that text inside here. And then you can see I just added a loop to the markdown text. That means I am just executing the regular expression with the whole text, and if it's matching with our regular expression pattern, I'm just inserting the data into the JSON list. You can see that I'm just inserting the whole data in the JSON list array. So, but the summary is all about, I just asked to Gemini to give me a function, a proper function that's gonna handle our feature. I give a markdown text as the input, and I asked to give me an array, and I then asked it to give me the function to actually perform the whole action, and it give me the function like this. So if you need more explanation, you can just ask to give me the function and ask the explanation in your format to understand the whole thing. But right now here we're just taking the whole string and trying to retrieve or matching the format of the regular expression, and we're pushing the string into the JSON list to make the whole array working. And later that I'm actually returning the whole JSON list, and of course I'm returning the first item from that list, because this could give like multiple array. Let's say in the example as I showed you, if there are something like JavaScript like this, if there are two or many like this, if there are two or many format like this, then there will be multiple list. So what we need the first list. We don't need the other list. But in the response, it always give you one list, but in the code, we must have to loop through the patterns. That means it's checking with the pattern. So if it found one pattern, then it's gonna create an string. It's gonna try to match. If that match, then it's gonna push that code block, let's say the array, into that JSON list. That means if there are multiple pattern like this, then it's gonna fetch all the pattern, and then it's gonna retrieve all the text inside of that code block, and then it's gonna push the JSON list. So I'm ensured that it's gonna give only one array. So that's why I can just say return the first item from that array. So that's what happening here, and it will give the whole array. That means it will return like iPost array, not something like the object. You can see, because whenever we are retrieving the array from the text, as I explained, that there could be multiple code block. So if there are multiple code block, that means we have to make it like a list. So that's why we're just returning the first item, and it is giving us the list of the first code block. And now let's just use this function here. So I just have to import that, and that's it. That means whenever we got the data, we'll get the data here, and then we will pass the data as a string from these functions parameters, and we are expecting the data will be similar formation type like iPost and list as well as. And if I just console the data, I can also console it, and then I'm just simply setting the local state data with the extracted data. That's mean here I can expect it will come like iPost data type. So that's our state where I'm just updating the state here. Whenever I got the response, I'm just updating the result, and before that I'm extracting the array from the markdown. So that's how the logic of when the API got successfully returned. And let's say the API got error, maybe the token error, maybe the payload have some issue, maybe some like random error. So we also have to handle the error. And as you can see, I added like a custom toast. I'm gonna explaining it later. So here you can see if I got any error, then I'm gonna set the state to the empty array so that the UI will not show anything other than that. So that's why you have to also clean up the array. And in the finally section, I just make my set loading or the loading state to false to actually turn off the loading visually. So now let's understand the custom toast, that what it is. So as I showed you earlier, that we are rendering React component in ContentScript. So when I try to use React hot toast, as you can see, the toaster I have also added before the callback. That's mean I can use the toaster in anywhere in the ContentScript. But the thing is, I was not able to get that style, default style from React hot toast. The toast was rendering perfectly, but I was not getting the style. So that time I have to create a custom toast to render on my ContentScript. So that's why you can see that this is the custom toast. So let's just create the custom toast here and explain what I actually did there. So that's our custom toast function. So what I did, I just asked to Gemini to give me a custom toast based on some props like message is loading status. So I want to handle some sort of different state, like whenever I also want to handle the toast and then the status. There should be multiple status like error, info, success. So I just asked Gemini to give me a kind of custom toast message using the toast.custom from React hot toast to actually give a different UI as well as which should work in our ContentScript. And as you can see, I also use Tailwind CSS, and as you saw the first part, we also added the Tailwind CSS style in our main render function. That's mean we can use Tailwind CSS. So what I did for the custom toast, I just asked to give me a toast with Tailwind CSS in style and with all the formation I need. And let's say for the icon, I use the lucid circle icon and then all the stuff. So that's like a simple function. So I just have to call this function anywhere and I can pass those property and it will give me the toast. So that's what just happened. So let's just try to import this one. So I can just simply import this, say custom toast like this, and the whole thing should work. Now I should see the toast with the style I have given with Tailwind CSS, because I don't have to do that, but I didn't found any solution when I try to directly render toast from React hot toast. The toast actually rendered, but the style wasn't there. So maybe there are a style path which I have to mention in our rendering here. Let's say in the ContentScript index.tsx file, as you saw, we also imported the style that we already have in the popup file. That's mean we also have to use the style from React hot toast. That's mean let's say if I found any or not. So let's just say import React hot toast slash maybe there should be style. You can see this one. So maybe you have to import this one to actually get the toast message import support. So let's just try it live that we can get that or not. So we have to use like toast.error. So let's just make this, and we have to use the toast from React hot toast like this. So and we're not going to use for now this custom toast, because in the content I added the CSS property, and I think it should work because now I just directly imported the hot toast index.css file, then it should got the CSS now. So let's just change the URL, or let's just make it like something like this to get the API failed, so that we can actually catch that error and show that response error here. So let's just open our subreddit And if I just go to the post inside and I can now type, and if I just click on the search, then you can see the toast is not showing. And let's see the network tab. That's what's happening there. So let me zoom in and you can see that. So if I just click on the search, nothing happening. That means there are an issue happening somewhere. So okay, we are getting error here, like the custom toast. So I think the code doesn't get updated, so we have to rerun the server again, not the package. We have to rerun the server like pnpm step. So sometimes when we change on the content script, it will not get the latest codes. It happened like sometimes maybe when we change something on here, or let's say if we add some asset kind of thing. So right now we added like the css file, which kind of like external things, so we must need to restart the server to actually get all those latest code. And what I can see is giving us error. So you can see that the error is this particular file is missing. So that was the issue I was also facing, that I was not getting the style of that React hot toast in my content.tsx file. If I got that style, then it should directly work, but I was not getting. Let's say is there are any other path. So if I just say there is a headless and it doesn't have anything, so let's say this one, let's just try. No, we are getting the same error kind of that the style is missing. So maybe I have to just check some issue from the GitHub, or maybe I have to check where their style file is from the GitHub, so that I can add that path here. And when I will add that path, I don't have to actually make custom toast or anything to actually render the toast. But in this video, it will be also helpful to learn. That's why I just ignored this part to actually not showing you the default toast. Instead, how you can implement the custom toast in your content.script, I just try to explain that. So now let's back to our custom toast to actually render it and see how our toast working or not. So this one will not work, so you have to study on their code base to actually find the actual css path, so that you can later use that. So what you have to do is just simply add that path into your index.tsx or like the context.ts file. That's it. So that's our custom toast. So now we should see that toast, and of course we have to run the server because it got crashed. So let's just try now. So here is our page and our extension. So let's just inspect and open our dev tool. Let's just zoom in and try to fetch an API like this, any random text, and try to search. Let's see our search showing or not. So it's calling to the API, and if I just go to the fetch, then that's the API that you can see is calling like Reddit API. So it shouldn't be calling something like that. The API should be changed. So what I have to do, maybe we didn't set any endpoint here. That's why, because right now it was getting a string from the Chrome storage. So we can't actually getting the response from anywhere, and it's calling the by default API from like the Reddit API. So what we have to do is simply took the URL first. So the URL will be like this. This one is the URL, and here we have to just add the URL, and for the key, let's just add a simple key, and that's it. Now we will get the exact URL of the Gemini. So if I just now go and try to click again, then you can see the UI should be changed, but still it's showing like reddit.com. So it's like kind of weird. So you also might face the same issue. So because we're using Axios, so the URL is not valid. We added like a random string here. So sometimes it will cause the issue. So you have to make like a valid URL, and then you have to request it. So now let's try with any text, random text, to get that error. So when I click on the search, now you can see that I'm calling the Gemini API, and there are the toast as well as it's showing. So the API is kind of like this. And as you can see, that's like model Gemini 2.0 flash generate content and the key after the key. And what it giving us the error of like this. In the details, you will get the error, more details, and it will say that API key not valid. Please pass a valid API key. So that's how we will get the error, and we are going to handle that here. And even if I try multiple times, I can just simply get that error in the toast format. So anybody entered wrong input with like wrong API key or something like that, then it will get error. So that's how we're actually handling it. And the same thing we also have to handle in the comment model as well, as because we also have to pass the data for the comment. We also need to make a prompt for the comment as well as. So that's from the post section, and we're gonna removing or like cleaning up the state as well as, and so on. We are also adding the custom toast, and inside that custom toast is just like the simple toast I generated from Gemini to give me with React hot toast. So that's it for like handling the toast. Now here you can see I'm also setting the data in like set Gemini response, but I'm not using that Gemini response because in this particular state I will get the array, the actual array. That means I must need to use that array to render the UI, and as you can see in here, I'm also rendering not only the post, but also like it's the post that's coming from the post model, like the parent where we are extracting the post from the real DOM. So somehow we have to render the post here as well as. That means when we have the response post, then we are gonna show the response post, and if we don't have that, then we have to render our older post. So if I just add this logic, sometimes it will not work. I think not sometimes, every time it will not work, because this Gemini response is kind of like an array, and when it got like an empty array, it's gonna pass. It will, because if we just use this pipe operator, it's gonna pass. So we have to check strictly that is there are any item on that array or not. So if there are any item on the Gemini response array, then we're gonna pass the Gemini response array. Otherwise we're gonna pass our older data that we scrapping from that real DOM, and we're gonna map through the whole data. Now we don't even have to render multiple times. We're just changing the state based on its data length. So whenever we search and get failed, we're also cleaning up our state. That's mean if we got error, then the older data will be gone, and we will show all of our previous data from the real DOM. So that's how the logic I have added. And also you can see in the count, we are only showing the post.length. We also have to show the Gemini response.length. So whenever we got the Gemini response.length, and if it's greater than 0, then it will display. Otherwise it will took the length from the post.length. So that's the logic for displaying all the stuff. So now let's just perform a real query with the real API key and the endpoint, so that we can understand what's going on. So I just copied my API key and I have just pasted it here, and I just saved that API key now, because previously it was wrong. So now let's just try to do some query with some posts. So I will just, already I have some posts. So let's just see how many posts I have. So if I just go top of that page, and if I go to post inside, then you can see I have 53 posts. So let's see some of the posts to actually ask some prompts. So I want to see the post that related to web workers. So you can see that we have a post called web workers. I think that will be better, but there are other posts as well as. So let's just ask for give me posts related to web workers. So that's our prompt, and let's just inspect and debug from the network tab as well as. And what should we expect? We should see the API call should be finished successfully, and it should return the markdown, and then the markdown should retrieve and extract the data like the JSON and render the data here. So let's just see. And of course it will take some time if you have a lots of data, and you can see it only give one data. And if I just open the API call, it's showing like 200 success. And if you go to the payload, then you can see in the content, in the parts, you will get the object, and in that object you will get the text. Text is kind of like your text, and you can see it's like a text format. The array is going to like a JSON.stringify format. So the model will understand what I'm trying to get. And if you got the response as I explained you earlier, that the response.data.candidates, then the 0. So that's what we are getting here. So if you can see that we have the candidate list. In the candidate list, we have many items. Like the first item, we will get the content. And as you can see, you can also find the other property that you can use later, the token count and other stuff. But we need the content, and inside that content we have the parts, and also you'll find the model and other property. And inside that parts we have that text, and the text you can see right now it's giving the quotation of like code block with JSON, not like JavaScript. So sometimes it gives in JavaScript, sometimes gives in JSON. That's why I added both in the regular expression of our scrap function. So here, so extract JSON list from markdown. So here you can see JSON and the JavaScript. So make sure based on your need, you just modify the regular expression. And after that, this text will actually give like the markdown format, and this markdown format retrieving the whole text into an array. So you can see this is the log console.info. We are also showing the extract data. So if I just open that, then you can see that's the list that I'm getting, and it's also in the same format that I was looking for. And that's why we got the same format. We just passed the same format to render that in our older UI, and it's just rendering perfectly. And if I just click on that particular post, I can also visit that post easily. That's how the logic works. So next, if I just try to remove the text, and now if I just search again, like let's just see any other post that I was looking for. Let's say the same post is kind of like what are the posts that related to advanced concept of JavaScript. So let's just ask the same question. So, or maybe ask for the reverse one. So what are the posts that related to JavaScript beginner concept? So in the demo section, I showed you to search what are the posts that related to JavaScript advanced concept. Now I am searching like what are the posts that related to JavaScript beginner concept. That's mean it requires some kind of brainstorm from the LLM to actually find out what are the posts that related to beginner. And you can see we got 4 posts, and it's saying login button change. Yeah, it seems like beginner. It's stuck on JavaScript logic, problem solving. HTML CSS is also found that in the description, like it's mentioning HTML CSS, which kind of like beginner friendly things, like big companies that don't use framework. That's also kind of like general beginner friendly post. And then we have this one, article to parse an integer. Why does JavaScript parse integer treat keycap emoji as integer? So that's also like kind of a beginner friendly post. So if I just ask for advanced now, so advanced concept, then now it should give all the posts that related to advanced concept. And as you can see, it gives us 6 posts, and one post is reback, aback, reback. I don't know what those are. So these are like, seems like advanced concept. And then we have lips in JavaScript. Yeah, that's a kind of advanced concept or intermediate concept, you could say. Then benchmark related things. We have JavaScript synchronous await, ECMAScript engine optimization, your variables. Then kind of the same post that it gives like for the beginner. So yeah, it's actually working. The whole thing will depend on the LLM, the model that you are using, and I'm using right now the Flash 2.0, and recently Gemini launched Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is also fine model, not only fine, the best model, and you can also use it free. So you can just simply use that as well as, but before using that, make sure you try with the prompt that you are actually added into your code. So before you added that prompt, you must need to try that prompt here so that you can make sure that, okay, you are getting the actual result with that model. Let's say if I just use the 2.5 Pro from here, then it must need to be, the result must need to be matched with your desire. So that's why you must have to check that here first, then you have to add that prompt into your code. I think that will work fine. So I think that's all about our post model, and I believe that's working fine, and the loading is also working fine. If I want some additional feature, like there are some common prompt I want to add, then I can add a drop down where I can add some common prompt, or like the common things that I always search for, or maybe I can create some card to get the statistics data, and I can add multiple filter and a lot of stuff if I want. And if I want to improve the UI, I can also do that by just grabbing the loading. Right now the loading is not well, so it's like just showing like loading. So you can add also some progress bar or some sort of other stuff. I think that will be work fine. So now let's just work on the comment, and after that we can just finish the project easily. So the rest thing is like the comment functionality we need to handle. So for the comment, we also need the similar function to handle our comment API call, but in that function we also require the post, because as I said earlier, that we also need the post as well as the comment to understand LLM better on our context. So that's why we need post as well as the comments. And as you can see, we are getting post and the comments, and because we are using our search component, which will give the search query when we trigger that function, so we just have to add that method here in the handle search, and then we are ready to go. We are ready to go for call this function as we did on the post. And we need a state for managing the data. Right now it will not need the extract function that we did here, like extract JSON list from Markdown. Instead, we are going to use just the simple response that we get from the API. Because if you look into the UI and if you go to the comment inside, then you can see that we are rendering a Markdown text. That means we will see all the comment list, and when we ask anything in the prompt, we only want to show the response, not like all the comment, because we need answer from those comments, not like all those comment in the list. So that's why we don't need to extract those comment lists separately. We just instead use the response directly from the API. And this function, the same thing, we are making the loading state true, then we are making the response state to the null. You can see the type is different now, it's string and null, but for the post it was like iPost array. So that's the difference. So but the name is kind of same, yeah. And we already have the URL. So what you can do also, you can refactor this part like handle search, because this URL and making payload is kind of like common. We can also refactor this part. So I just didn't refactor it, I just make it like simple to understand. So that's why it look like redundant. So that's the URL with the same endpoint and the API key, because we are using this use from data, which is kind of like the reusable hook that we used in the post section as well as. So that's making our URL, and then the payload is kind of different here, not fully different, but you can see that there are an error like the type error. So maybe the type of the post was not well, so that was like only object, so it should be like the array of object, and now you can see the error should gone. Yep. So what I'm doing in the payload is I give the prompt as I give in the post. So this is the prompt, like the search query that's coming from the parameter, and then we have the list of the comment. So this is dataset of comments in JS array, JSON.stringify comment. So the same thing happening here as well as, but now one tweak is we are also sending the dataset of the post. That's mean if I go to any post details, let's say this one, then you can see that we already have that post as well as sometimes we also have description. So let's say if I just go there, then you can see it has some short description. So for AI or LLM, a single data is also important to actually understand the context. So sometimes if you doesn't give the description, then LLM will not understand what actually the post is for. So you must have to give the whole data that you got. So every data you got that will help to improve the context, you must need to pass that. So that's why I'm just passing the data set like the post, and you can see the post from here, and the post I'm getting, and I'm just sending the post first array, and that's mean I also have to pass the whole post. So let's just see we are passing the whole post or not. Right now we are not passing the whole post, so we are just passing the first element. So let's just make it like post. That means we are passing the array of the post, and here when we are getting the array, we are just making our first element in the stringify format, so that the prompt become like this is our prompt, this is our comments, and this is the dataset of the post. And now based on this post dataset and the comment dataset and the prompt, give me what it asks on the prompt, not any other text. That means it will only give what it actually asks from the prompt, and that's actually our main prompt. So we are just making a prompt inside of a prompt. So that's kind of like it. So yeah, it was really fun to make the project, and I think you will also enjoy the video if you watch fully and all the things that we are building. And we also have to import here the Axios to call the API, and this is the same logic we did on the post section here. And we also have to recurse the post because this is kind of like the same. We can also refactor this part, like this part here, like the whole try catch. But for now, let's just keep it simple. And that's the same response we will get as we get from the post. So the same will be happen here. We'll get that in candidates first array, then this. Then we are setting the response data in our state, like the Gemini response state, and we will get that response in this particular state. Now we can just simply use that where we are showing the markdown text. So we can just simply get rid of our static text. Instead we can show the Gemini response text, and it will come like a markdown format, string format, and it's gonna render the whole UI in a markdown UI, and that's what I need. And as well as you can see the custom tools need to be imported, so let's just import it from the common component, and also edit the message as well as the status. So if I need to add different status, let's say success, or if I need to add loading, I can also handle all this stuff here. So the code is there, so I can just simply reuse that. So that was the logic. So now let's just experiment that our comment model is working or not. So for that case, I have to go any post details. So right now I am here. Let's just find a post which have a lots of comments. So I think we should find with the top, maybe filter with the top. And as you can see, it has 29 comments, and I think that will be working fine. And what about that particular post is about in defense of TypeScript enums, you are probably using it wrong. Okay, so I don't know what is the context. It's actually referring a blog, and there are too many comment as well as. So let's just see our comment inside working or not. And yes, we found 13 comments. I think there are several replies on all of these comments, so I have to open those reply as well as. So let's just find out all these replies. So you can see there are lots of text. So if you are a human and try to read all these text, it's really hard and unproductive to, you know, understand those concepts or like study those comments, which is not efficient. So that's why we somehow need some sort of automated task to actually give me all the results. So you can see I just wrap up all those comments here. So now I can just see the comment inside. I have 20 comments. So now I can just ask anything from the comment. So let's ask like, what are the idea people sharing? So what are the main idea people sharing? So I just need to get the summarized version. So that means I can just ask this prompt to actually get the result. And you can see that people are sharing ideas about the use of TypeScript enum, specifically whether TypeScript enum are useful or problematic. Many believe they are often misused. That means some of the most people believe that some of them are misused. Okay, that's people opinion. Then the drawback of TypeScript enum is like code generation, tree shaking issue, and a lot of stuff people are mentioning. Then proper use case, historical context, and so on. So people are actually putting their opinion here. So that's mean the whole comments is kind of like sharing their opinion. So I think that will not what I was looking for. Let's just find out something else, and I have to find out with this month. That's mean in this JavaScript subreddit, what is the post that actually got super viral. So I think this one got 71 comment, which is a 10x faster, which I already showed you on the demo. So let's just find another one. So this is kind of another one, which is kind of like Byte Plus, so the cargo for JavaScript Watch, or some sort of like that. So 10 stack forms, great. I think this one could be beneficial for me. So patterns for memory efficient DOM manipulation with modern vanilla JavaScript. That means it's kind of like a new thing you can learn. So now I can apply my comment inside here. So there are too many replies. So let's just open some of the hidden reply from the accordion and try to prompt with our comment. So we have 14. So I want to know what are the concept people sharing. So let's see what are the concept people sharing about that. So efficient DOM manipulation with vanilla JavaScript. So it is showing like text content versus inner text. Then it's mentioning weak maps for data binding, garbage collection, create document fragment. That's another one. Then finalization registry for garbage collection callbacks. That means these are the core point people mentioning. And you can see that how easy it is to play with all the comments. I don't even have to actually read all those comments. I can just simply ask anything here. So let's ask something else. Let's say about the create document fragment. So let's just ask why we need to use fragment for optimization based on the comment or your knowledge. That means now Gemini will use its knowledge to get this particular keyword to find out, and also it will took that comment as well as to give me the explanation that I was looking for. Let's see what it gives. So it's like used for optimization because directly manipulation, the DOM repeatedly can be slow. And yeah, I think this is the result or the response that come from Gemini. And it analyzes the comment first, then it actually gives the response. And if I just ask to give me the actual comment, so let's just ask, give me the actual comment related to this. I think it will be like comments. So let's see. This is, I'm just assuming this is not from the comments. This is from the LLM. And if I just search with this command, now I should see this is the comment actual. So this was the writer, and an alternative to using .create document fragment and apply child is just spread in a just array into .append. It has the same behavior of inserting them all at once. So that was the comment, but I asked why it's beneficial to use that, or like how it optimizing or whatever. So then it actually took that comment, it took our prompt, it took all the comment, it took the post, and then it actually returned our desired result brainstorming by the model. So that's how we can use this tool to actually make us more productive when we actually read those comments, when we find out any sort of post that we are looking for. Let's say we are interested on some sort of JavaScript React post every time, then we have to play with, or like we have to add a common prompt that will always fetch or help to give you all the posts that related to JavaScript or React. So that's how you can directly use it in your daily basis when you're using Reddit. And I think that's really, really cool. And also Gemini gives you like free API handling, and there are some limit, but you can also work daily basis with no other issue. And if you do so, then you can make you more productive on actually using Reddit as a social media platform. So now if I just summarize or look up the whole Chrome extension, what we develop, what we did. So first we developed the popup where we have the form endpoint and the API key. Then we can save. We can also show the toast as I showed you earlier. Then after saving that, we see how we can write the code for the menu. This is called the context menu there. And then whenever we call the menu, we also see how we can do the messaging stuff in Chrome extension, or maybe in the any browser extension, how you can use different plugin library from WXT to make those things work out. So that's it for the menu. And then when we click on a menu, then we should render the UI in the shadow root using React. That's also you have learned from this video. And then the same thing goes for the comment. Then we added the input field as well as like this one. So here we can type and then we can call API. Then we also handle the API error with showing the toast. And then also you showed that you also learned that how we can convert our markdown text into our desired result, or like there should be a compiler type functionality that's gonna handle our compilation, that's gonna take a string of markdown, then it gives some other text that you are looking for. So I also try to show you all the steps that actually helpful for performing this kind of functionality. So you can just grab this concept, you can use it to any other social media platform to use it better. You can add kind of like multiple functionality to make the whole project like more efficient or more productive. So I believe you understand the whole logical part. So if I just explain you a little bit about the code structure, we have the entry point folder where we have the pop-up codes, and inside the pop-up code is kind of like a whole React app where we just rendered the from component. And then we have hooks, which is kind of like a common hooks which will return some data from the Chrome storage, as well as we have this state from the React user state that's gonna handle our from data. And then we have the content folder as well as the background folder, and the background folder is helping us to create all the menus, the context menus. And the content folder is kind of like a mix with multiple React components as well as some script that's actually help us to render all the model and all the logic that is doing. And inside all those model, you can see that in React, raw React, we are actually calling the API. We are actually getting the response from the API and we are manipulating the response, and we are actually getting the desired result from the whole process. So that's how the whole thing work. And we also created like a common folder where we are managing some of the common components like header, then the index file. That's like one of the important one, which actually help to reusably create multiple React element, and you can insert that into your shadow root. So that part is really important. So I would highly recommend watch multiple time if you don't understand the whole part. And then we have the search component that's gonna handle the search separately. We can just reuse that anywhere. And then in the content folder, we have the main content file, which is called the index.tsx, which actually helping us to define the content script with the main function and where we are receiving the message from the background script. Then we are added switch case to actually render multiple UI. We can name it anything. Right now it's like not good name, variable name, so we can just change it. Then you can see we are passing different type, as well as here we have that function that's actually processing all the model with the type, as well as we are extracting data from the real DOM with these functions, where you can see that we are selecting like SSH Reddit dash post. We are getting those information from the get attribute method, and the same thing we are doing with like the comments. And as well as we have the extract JSON list from markdown function that's actually parsing the markdown, and then it's actually retrieving the array from that markdown. So that's how all the logic is working. And if you just watch this full video, you don't need the whole code. You can just simply watch my process and you can simply just start building the same project I have built. Or if you have similar idea, you can just implement the whole thing by yourself. So before wrapping up the video, let's talk about unit testing with WXT framework. So if you go to the doc of WXT, you will find the unit testing section as well as E2E testing section. And in my channel, I have E2E testing video on Marne Stack with Playwright, Cypress both. So you can use Playwright as well as in WXT framework for actually write your Chrome extension end-to-end test code. That's one. And then we have the unit testing. So for the unit testing, you can use Jest or any library, but Vitest is the one that actually WXT provide first class support. So you don't have to do a lot of stuff. You just have to install Vitest, and then you can just simply write code. So let's install Vitest first. So for that case, we have to install Vitest with npm install Vitest. And after successfully installed, you have to create a file called vitest config. So you will get the file code in the doc. So the file name will be vitest.config.ts. So just grab that file name and create that file into your root folder like this, and then add the code that the documentation actually suggesting. So that's the code that will help you to actually use Vitest from like making the test work. And it's using WXT/testing as the plugin for configuration, the whole thing. So, and one thing you have to do as well as, which is like in the script property in the package.json, you have to define that script for the test. So we can declare two script. One will be for test, that's like Vitest. It will only run in headless mode. That means there will not be an UI. You will see all the result in the terminal. And then we have test-UI, which will give you a separate UI kind of things. That's also kind of good. I will show you a little bit later. Let's just try to write some demo test code in our project. I think not demo, I can add real test code for our script, which is in the content folder. We have the script, and in the script, these are the pure function that I can write unit test for. So let's just write some test code for this file. So that's all our test code. And you might wondering, I write those test code? No, I didn't write any lines of this test code. I just generated it from ChatGPT and maybe Gemini. So nowadays, writing test code is like ice cream. So you will find or like you will write 1,000 line of test code just using Gemini or maybe GPT. So yeah, you just have to understand the process or like the steps that's happening, and also the test source and the case. What are the test case you are covering? So you have to actually identifying them, and then you have to generate a test code for them. So that's why I'm not making in details explanation for those test code. So if you dedicatedly want any video about Vitest or any sort of unit testing library, just comment down this video, then I can add that particular topic in my video list as well as, so that you can get also benefited. Because if you even just generate all the test code from Gemini, sometimes the code becomes like 1,000 line or maybe 500 line, more than that. So when you debug something on those test code, you must need the knowledge of the understanding of the testing. So if you don't have that knowledge, you just copy the code and add it into your code base, then you are not gonna manage that long term. So maybe in the short term you can apply them. You can add some test cases, that's fine, but in the long run you must need to understand all the steps that's happening in the test code so that you can debug, or let's say you change something on your code and you want to also update your test code. If you don't know the basic or the fundamental, then you are gonna get it stuck. So that's why that's really important to actually understand the how testing, unit testing and E2E testing work under the hood, and then you can generate code and actually go beyond everything. So again, I'm saying that if you want to see any video about testing, just let me know. So that's the code, and I have tried to cover some of the important test case. Let's say if I just hide all those test suits, then you will see all the test case. So let's just hide all of them. So these are all the test case. So the first one should extract post data from DOM element. So this is for the extract Reddit post from DOM. So that's the first function, that's this one. So the test is for this one, and we have two test cases that cover the whole thing. So should handle missing attributes, and then should extract post from DOM elements. So then we have for the comments as well as, which also have two. It should handle missing content element, and also it should extract those data from the DOM, and you can see all the code here. And then we have the extract JSON list from markdown. So that's like a pure function. We need to be handled multiple cases. I can add more because this function could have more SKH. So this is kind of like a not proper function, like not I would not say like standard function. You have to make more condition here so that it gives you very less error. So that's why you also have to add more test case as well as, but I just added 4. So that's kind of it. So that's our test case, and you can generate for each component, React component. You can also generate for the hook that we already created here. We can create a test code for that, as well as in the background we have some code. So let's just add or write test code for this particular file. So let's just write test code for this particular file. So in the background I can just add this background test.ts. So you have to add like filename.test.ts, or if it's like a React JSX LE component, then you have to add like background.test.tsx, something like that. So that's the name, and that's the test code for actually the context menu. So it have, I think, 4 or 5 test case and 1 test suite. So that's our second test case. I'm not gonna cover all the test case because you can just generate that by GPT or Gemini. So I'm not gonna waste your time to actually showing all the stuff, but if you need dedicated video, then just let me know. So these are the 2 test cases I have added. Now let's just try to see how we can run those test cases. And as I showed you earlier, that you must have to add the script property like the test, and then you are ready to go. Let's just try this npm test, and you can see that it starts running all the tests, and it's showing there are 2 tests, and there are total 11 tests that have been passed, and there are 2 files there. And if I just try to run the UI mode, right now it's run actually on the headless mode, which doesn't have any UI. You will see everything on the headless, or like in the terminal. So you have to run like test UI. So when we do so, then you can see it asking to install another package, and the package is called vitest/ui. So you have to just hit Y for proceed further, then it will install that package. Now you can actually install the whole thing, or like see the whole result, and then you can see that that's the UI for the testing. So if you go top, then you can see it's running on the local host. It's actually running in a server, and you can see all the test suits as well as all the test case. And if you click on the run, it's going to run all the test case, and you can see the result, kind of like a statistics things here. You can see all the time and a lot of stuff. You can also see individual test case. You can see the graph, as well as if you just go on a particular test case, then you can see the graph, as well as you can see the code from here. You can also maybe modify the code from here, but I would not recommend you to modify here. You can also see the console, and in the report you can see all the test has been passed. So there are the filter option as well as the search options. You can see expanding all the test case. Then there are some other tools, that's like the dashboard we have. We can also change the mode. So there are like a lot of functionality it will give you out of the box if you use the Vitest UI mode, and as well as you will see the result in the headless mode in the terminal. So that's about the Y test and how you can run it in your local. So I would just prefer to use the headless mode. Sometimes if you need a lot of tests, then I would prefer to use the UI mode, but most often the headless mode work really fine. So that was the the for the testing. And let's say you want to add a GitHub workflow for the testing. So in our package.json, so if I just clone the repo and install pnpm and then just run like pnpm test, then it's gonna run test code in the terminal. So then the workflow is really easy. So we have to create a folder called .github, and inside that folder we have to create another folder called workflows, and inside that folder we can create any name with any name, and the extension should be YML, and inside that YML you have to generate a script that will run in the GitHub or in the Git. So that's like a simple script that you can simply generate it from Gemini or GPT to ask like, I want to run this particular script like this one. You can give the package.json script property to the Gemini to in the prompt and ask like, give me a YML file to actually maintain the workflow, like maintain the CI. And I just did the same. It was previously give me in npm, but I asked to give me in pnpm. Then it actually gave me this version of code that actually set up the pnpm, and then you can see that it's showing like installing the dependency, and then it's run like pnpm test or pnpm run test. So when you just push the folder with the file, then as the code mentioned, like in the main branch, the CI will be triggered, and all the PR that targeting main branch will also triggered for this CLI. So whenever you push something on the main branch or you created a PR against main branch, then this script or this CI file will be run, and it will run the test file as well as we saw directly when we run in the terminal. So you can see the same result that's running on there. So that's like a simple CI script that's gonna help you to actually run the whole thing in the cloud to check all the test codes are running well or not. And the same thing will go for the E2E testing as well as. So let's say you added E2E testing, you just have to install Playwright, and you can watch my Playwright video to understand it better. And then you can just add your code test coverage, and then you have to add another script to actually run all of your E2E testing on the CI on the GitHub so that you can perform all the tests there. So I think that's all about this video. As a summary, we build a project first, then I try to show you step-by-step process that how I am actually developing the whole thing, how we are refactoring the code, how we are binding the API and all the stuff, how we are actually rendering the React component into the content script. I think that is the most crucial part of this video. So if you understand how you can render React component into the content script, then you can render any sort of framework component into your content script. Let's say you are Vue.js, is Svelte. So with the help of WXT framework, you can now just simply render any UI in your content script or pop-up script based on the framework. So I think WXT is really cool framework to use for, and also for building production ready framework. And it's really open source. You can play around it with the code base. You can see everything there. And for our project, the project is pretty straightforward and it's simple right now. If I have any plan to add more feature, I can add that later. I have some few plan to add more feature here because I want to add like some common prompt drop down where I can add my common prompt, and also I can create some option here like the common prompt I ask every time. So I can just create the feature or the section where I can add multiple prompts, and I can use those prompts as a drop down, and then I can just search those by selecting them, so I don't have to type anything. So I can add multiple feature in this particular extension, and it could be like a micro product which could be launched. And I think I'm gonna not give you the source code because my plan is to launch it maybe sometimes, or maybe if you need the whole source code, I will attach the link, but you must need to purchase it because it's like my code. I don't want to give it like open source. So why I'm not giving it open source, because I have a plan to make it like more more bigger, adding more feature, and making it kind of like a micro product. So that's why I'm not giving you the source code, although you can just watch this whole video to understand what's happening. You can directly clone kind of like similar extension I built. So just watch this video, and for the learning purpose, you can learn it, you can build it by yourself, and if you need to use it, you can also use that. But for the source code, I will provide the link in the description, and I will put the price really low so that you can purchase it and you can play around it. And if you have some idea, you can just launch it. There will be no issue with that source code if you just purchase it. So that's going to be all about in this video. If you love the video, then like it, subscribe my channel, and also give me feedback about this video. That's are you understand fully or not? What are the area that I can improve on my video, as well as the explanation is correct or not. Any sort of feedback will be highly appreciated from you, because I just started making content and I need feedback from you to actually move forward. And also, if you are looking for any video that I can cover, so let's just give the comment in the video section so that I can add that into my to-do list. So thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to see you in the next one.